So, good morning, everybody, and welcome you to the March 11th, 2025 meeting of the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. At this time, I'd like to ask Reverend Hum if he would come forward and give us an invocation, please.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let us pray. Most gracious God, we thank you for this new day, the signs of hope and spring. We thank you for this beautiful place in which we live. We pray that you would give to your people grace and the understanding of our responsibility to one another. We pray for our leaders that you would give them wisdom and conscience. We pray that you would also bless them with a tough outer skin, but never a hardened heart. We pray that you would lead us with patience and mercy in all that we do. And we pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, Reverend Hum comes to us from St. Paul's Church right here in Prince Frederick. Thank you for coming in, and congratulations. His son achieved the rank of Eagle Scout a couple weeks ago and has enlisted to go in the Army, correct? Yes, good.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. The next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda as submitted. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as submitted. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Public service announcements, I do have a couple. We didn't meet last week, but just prior to that, we have to send our condolences to Greg Bowen's family. We lost Greg about a week and a half ago. Most of you knew or had at least heard of Greg. County native, was very active in preservation. Right out of school, he got active and was part of planning and zoning. He actually set up the TDR program that we have in Calvert County as a preservation tool. It was nationally recognized as the best preservation tool in this country at that time. Greg just never lost focus of trying to preserve Calvert County and all the rural character that we have. People move here, they talk about why they moved here is because of the way it looks and the feel, and a lot of that you can attribute to Greg and his hard work. Headed up ACLT, American Chestnut Land Trust, who has preserved almost 5,000 acres without, I don't think there's one penny of county money in that preservation. Preserved Parkers Creek watershed through that project. Greg is going to be greatly missed. He was a leader in the local community for environmental issues. Really, really sad to lose Greg, but just a long list of great Calvert Countians we've lost in the past 12 months here. So,
You know, he was able to, being he had seen so much, and watched things grow and all, he was able, like for myself, to help me on an education level of being that he had been here before I got here to kind of help explain, how certain things work and all, and very patiently, I didn't know him prior to here, but really gained a whole lot of respect for him and his knowledge, and I was very sad to hear that he left.
yeah. So they haven't announced any services yet, so at some point in time, there'll be some announcement for a service. So just want to keep his family in your prayers.
Most recently, Greg wanted to expand the rural legacy throughout the county to protect the Fishing Creek watershed, Plum Point watershed. He had a lot in the works. It's a shame he didn't get a chance to see it go to fruition. But ironically enough, the Tuesday of the zoning ordinance meeting, he was in here. Mm-hmm. The following Tuesday, he actually passed. He was very pleased that the zoning ordinance went through. We had conversations with him, and he was definitely happy to see that had gone through. But he wanted to come in and do a presentation on the fact that land preservation equated to a person selling land for development, and sometimes you had the potential to make more money off of going into a preservation program than selling to a developer. He had a lot of plans. Unfortunately, his life was cut short. We need to find somebody to fill his shoes.
Well, I can say from the time I entered politics many years ago, I met Greg, and Greg has mentored me throughout my political career, and such a wonderful source, and I considered him a friend. He'll be greatly missed.
And if I can add something, I think he started with buildings and grounds with the mosquito control and worked his way through the county all the way up to where he was. Great person.
I know Wilson Freeland did.
He was with Wilson.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yes, sir.
But we are truly going to miss Greg's wisdom and his guidance. At least I know I will.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, on a happier note, March is Women's History Month, where we recognize and honor all the contributions that women have made in this country. I will publicly admit I'm man enough to do this. Throughout my career and all the different organizations I've been involved in, women got the work done. Men as leaders took credit, but women did all the work. And when I was at the Department of Ag, I think I hired only women, Julie. Maybe one male got mixed in there by accident, but because I know women get it done. And so,
And it hasn't changed. I used to. I remember one time when I was new. They're like, all guys run stuff. I'm like, we don't even have any guys here. We had like one male, maybe one or two male directors or something. I'm like, no,
All I can say is don't get me started.
Well, Commissioner Grasso has said she does do
What do you
all
say
the work.
behind
I
every-
did that.
No, I don't say that.
Sit behind every good man is a great woman.
Or a surprise mother-in-law.
but even if you look at our own county history, you can see all the women throughout the county's history that have done things that made this a better place. So we want to take this month to recognize the significant role that all the women have played in our history in this country and state and county. Also, we have had some issues. Most of you have heard about avian flu because, excuse me, it's why eggs are so high in the grocery store is because they've had, when a chicken flock gets avian influenza, you have to depopulate the entire flock. They get rid of all of them to contain the spread. I think I read somewhere in some literature that last year in this country alone, we depopulated 55 million layers. That's why eggs are $8 or $9 a dozen. It has nothing to do with political leadership or inflation. It's all about supply and demand. And it takes 18 months to 2 years to build back that production without the flu, which is still around. So we have had recently a backyard flock that was identified in Montgomery County that had avian influenza. There is a process in the state of Maryland where you're supposed to register your backyard flocks with the Maryland Department of Agriculture. That was started when Julie and I were there. And the importance of that is people say, why do I have to do that? I don't want the government to know what I have in my backyard. The importance is when you have an outbreak like this, so we know where the birds are, because they're all carriers. And you need to know where all the birds are to contain the spread. And it's a very unfortunate thing. I know that for people who have backyard flocks, they get attached to their birds. When they lose those birds, I know it's an emotional issue for them. For producers, it's a financial hit. And generally, they don't recognize that the flocks have it until their broilers are almost ready to go out. So a producer has spent 4 months raising these birds, and the day or two before he gets paid for all of his work, they come in, and if they test positive, they depopulate the whole entire flock, and he doesn't get paid. So it's very important that you register your backyard flocks so we know where the birds are and we can help trace and track where the avian influenza is. Ironically enough, there is a treatment to prevent avian influenza, but the Europe market will not allow you, they won't buy chickens or eggs that have been treated. So we could fix this tomorrow. And I think I heard the president say they're going to go ahead and do that. We could stop it tomorrow and allow producers to medicate their flocks, but then it would block us out of the EU market. So it's a very tragic thing. And we just ask that if you have sick bird, please call the Maryland Department of Agriculture at 410-841-5810.
So are still blaming the spread of that on the migration of wild birds?
So yes, migration of birds moving around helps spread it. Not so much in the chicken houses, but yes, they carry, when the birds migrate back and forth, they carry around. Now it's in dairy cows. I don't think they have any evidence that it transfers through the milk, but they have had evidence of where it's transferred to workers who are around the cows. And the cows are big enough to pretty much tolerate it, and they can fight it off. The chickens can't. So they generally die once they get it. So it's a very big issue. And I see on the news all this time about, the price of eggs is Joe Biden's fault. It's not Joe Biden's fault. It's avian influenza's fault. And this is a worldwide issue, so it's going to take a while to get it fixed. Next is the Linda Kelly Animal Shelter is offering $17 adoptions in honor of St. Patrick's Day for all cats and dogs. You just have to, the event's taking place on this Saturday, March 15th, and on next Tuesday, March 18th. And there are special adoptable pets chosen by the volunteers that will have a surprise pot of gold in their cage or kennel, signifying their adoption fee is waived during the event. All adopters will receive a special St. Patrick's Day bag of charms, adoption certificate, lucky charm or bandana, and a bag of treats. So that will lead us into our Animal of the Week, which has no adoption fees, as long as he's adopted within a week. Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Brandy. I'm the shelter supervisor at the Linda Kelly Animal Shelter. And today I have with me Max. He is roughly 11 years old, a little on the older side, but still got a lot of left in him. He's been with us for about 3 weeks. His owner had to go into a nursing home, so he came to stay with us. He recently had a dental done, so he has had a lot of teeth extracted, so he doesn't have very much. So he should be mainly on a soft food diet, which he loves very much. But no, he's a very loving boy. He can be vocal sometimes, but he loves to just be pet. I brought his little brush with him because he'll just sit there and let you do it.
Apparently he doesn't like attorneys.
He's eyeing you a little bit.
He was giving John the evil eye.
Maybe he's saying he needs you to come get him.
Looked like he was ready to pounce there at one minute.
So yeah, no, he'll be available. Or he is available, and like Commissioner Hans said, for about a week he'll be adoption fees waived, and
Told you.
Oh, yeah.
Told you. Called that. I like this cat.
so. But like, yeah, he's a sweet boy. He doesn't mind being held too much, but he'd prefer to just kind of lay on your
Plus-
desk. We had him in a meeting with us one day, and he was just walking around all the tables, just letting everybody love on him.
It's got to be traumatic. I mean, being with somebody for 11 years and then that
Yeah.
separation, that's heartbreaking,
Yeah.
for both people.
The family tried to keep him, but their allergies, they weren't able to. So, but yeah,
Yep.
he's a sweet boy. Say sometimes my tongue sticks out because I don't have any teeth, and I drool a little bit. But other than that, I'm great.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on by and get yourself a pet for St. Patrick's Day.
Well, I'm sure John will probably be by tonight. You can see the attraction there. Yeah.
John's dogs would probably love that.
I know my
Live
dog.
with
will.
dogs, but he's great with cats.
So the last item I have on the public service announcements is tonight we are going to have a budget hearing right here in this room. Starts at 7 p.m. Just want to remind everybody that this is the staff recommended budget. It's not our budget. It's the budget that staff has prepared based on their wants or needs. So it is not, it will change significantly by the time it gets to our approval, which won't happen until early June. So just remind everybody again, it's the staff recommended budget. It's not our budget. So that's tonight, 7 o'clock here in this room. I don't have the information, but you can always Zoom in. If you go to our website, it'll guide you to how to Zoom into that meeting if you can't attend. And as always, you can also make comments by Zoom, or over the phone. That concludes my public service announcements to today. That takes us into consent. We have 4 items under consent today. Item 1, Department of Public Safety Memorandum of Agreement cost recovery for Prince Frederick Volunteer Rescue Squad. Item 2, Department of Public Works, Maryland Water Infrastructure Financing Administration application for critical project financial assistance drinking water projects. Item 3, Circuit Court for Calvert County fiscal year 2026 grant application for adult treatment. Item 4, Department of Public Safety 6851 12th Street North Beach Local Flood Risk Reduction Grant application. Are there any objections to the items listed under consent today?
I have none.
Make a motion that we adopt and approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
Have a motion and a second that we adopt and approve the items listed under consent today. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is old business, Department of Public Safety, Federal Emergency Management Administration grant hold. Mr. Grierson, Chief Grierson.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Public Safety Director Dave McDowell. I have staff here with me today to discuss, well, let me back up a little bit. We all know that many of the FEMA grants have been suspended throughout the country, and unfortunately, Calvert County has to pay its part of that. We also know that through your leadership, we have been able to take advantage of FEMA grants to better people's lives throughout the county. So with that said, I'm going to have staff introduce themselves, and we'll move forward with this presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Grierson, Emergency Manager, Emergency Management Division Chief.
Stacy O'Donnell, Hazard Mitigation Specialist. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, and I'll go ahead and start and read the memo for you. Background, on February 28th, the Division of Emergency Management, EM, was notified by the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, MDEM, that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has placed several grants on hold for further review. Discussion. Department of Public Safety, Division of Emergency Management wishes to present to the board what grants are on hold and to discuss if the board wishes to place a hold on any of these projects. Fiscal impact. Hazard mitigation assistance, unexpended funds, $654,660.94, and outstanding reimbursements of $916,021.69. Emergency Management Planning Grant, outstanding reimbursements of $164,777.64. State Homeland Security Program, outstanding reimbursements of $38,797.90. And in-progress funding of $93,000. And lastly, Port Security Grant Program, unexpended funds of $600,000. Conclusion recommendation, the Department of Public Safety, Emergency Management Division is seeking guidance from the Board of County Commissioners regarding the continuance of the affected projects. And hopefully I'll answer some of the questions you'll have about some of those figures I just gave you, and I'll break them down a little bit for you in our PowerPoint program. Dave, I'm going to need the... Here, thank you. So, again, this is a report on some of the FEMA grants that are currently being told us that are on hold. Again, the background is on February 28th, Calvert EM got notification from MDEM that some of the federal grants were going to be put on hold. What I'm providing you here is a notice from FEMA that went to MDEM. And you can see some of the verbiage in here. I'll let you read this. It's important to note here that it talks about the funding. The funding is all that's being held up right now. In other words, the process that we're going through, we can still put in, we can still work these projects, but it's the funding, the reimbursement right now is what's being put on hold. Specifically, they're looking at two items that, when I read this here, they're looking at NGOs or non-government organizations who are the recipients. And they're also looking for non-congregate sheltering activities. I think that's what they're looking at. And those have been in what's been in the news a little bit lately, where they thought that FEMA was making funding to some of those places that they shouldn't have. I will say that the projects that we're talking about today and everything that Calvert has does not include either one of those, just so you know. Let me provide you a few additional details. MDEM has confirmed that these funds are on hold. They went in through their online access to see if they could get funding, and they were unable to access that program. Grants are reimbursement based. In other words, funds are expended at the local level, and then the county submits back to the state for reimbursement. The state then submits to FEMA for reimbursement. You forward fund those programs. You've seen us here before doing budget adjustments, and we forward fund those, and that's where we start the process. So the hold impacts multiple grants.
You got to speak into the mic. Sorry about that. They
Sorry.
can't hear you on YouTube. You have to just bring it straight up to you. You got it.
The hold impacts multiple grants utilized by emergency management, and it may be some other grants that we're not aware of. This is moving very fast right now. We still are gaining information on some of these. EM's primary concern right now is the impacts on some of the hazard mitigation grants that we are currently working on right now. The county primarily uses these hazard mitigation assistant grants to assist the homeowners in these at-risk properties, typically your elevation and acquisition properties that you see us bring before you. When a project is awarded, FEMA enters into a contract with the state as the recipient, then the state enters into an MOA with us as a sub-recipient. The county, again, funds these federal portion of these grants, and usually they're 75-25 splits like most of their grants. But the county generally forward funds at 75% towards these grants. Currently, we have right now in the hazard mitigation assistance funded grant projects, we have 3 projects ongoing right now that we're working through. The first one is an elevation project. It has three homes in it currently, and I'll give you a little bit more rundown here in a second on those. The second project is for the acquisition projects. Those are the projects that you see, the houses down on the cliffs that we acquire, and typically we demolish those and return them back to a natural state. And the last one is a subrecipient management fee. FEMA allows us to take in these hazard mitigation grants and take 5% of the management fee to help pay for the staff that works on these programs. That's what helps pay for Stacy's, even though she's a fully funded position here, it allows us to refund the county back for the time she has spent working on these projects. So let's talk about the first one, the elevation, so we know where we're at with this. Currently in that project, we have three homes. We usually have to put these together or bundle them to sell them to FEMA to get these. We have 3 houses in this project. We have 2 elevations in this project that are already complete, and we have 1 that's in progress right now. And it's on the early stages. There's a lot of paperwork to do on the early end. They're working through the engineering and preparing that right now. And again, nothing says that we can't continue to work on that. The fiscal impact right now is we have $106,385.95 that are unexpended funds that are sitting there right now that have already been approved for the projects sitting there that we have not spent. We have spent on those projects $100,725.74 in outstanding reimbursements. In other words, work that's already been done on some of the homes, we've submitted back to the state for reimbursement and are just waiting to get those funds back.
So, excuse me, Mike, so we're already in the rears for over 100,000.
And I'll add on to that here when you see on the other projects as well, just so you,
Want
yes.
to make sure everybody understands
Yep.
that.
On the multi-house acquisitions, we also have 3 homes in that project. We had one that you may remember, we've already acquired and demolished that structure that had the tank hanging out over the cliff. That was one of those projects. The other project we have is ongoing right now. Now, when this was put together, it says this week. That's ongoing. The contractor gives us an update every day. They literally just finished demolishing this house today?
Yesterday.
And then we have, again, like the elevation project, we have one property that's not yet acquired in the early stages. And obviously, you see this is an even larger impact than what the elevation projects were for us. Right now, we have $548,274.99 in unexpended funds that are sitting there waiting on this last project. And we've already spent $815,295.95 on the previous homes that we're just sitting, waiting to get reimbursed back from the state.
Mike, they're not saying no. It's a pause, correct?
Correct.
And obviously, we don't have a timeline or anything like that. Is there anything positioning wise to making sure, like, I would assume once they lift this, it's gonna go quick and it might not be as much out there as it used to be, to where we're positioned to, make sure everything is, in line to where, we have a better chance of getting reimbursed?
Commissioner, we hope so. I mean, it's too early to tell a lot of that, and I do have some FAQs at the end of this, and that's a little bit touching on some of that now, that the state has been unable to answer some of those questions for us right now. It's just too early to tell.
Gotcha.
The last project here that I mentioned was the reimbursement that we can use for county staff working on these projects. Right now, we've got $8,285.59 in time spent by staff working on projects that we haven't put in for. I know I just approved recently $72,705.03 for time spent on the previous projects that we've just put into the state, again, seeking reimbursement on that. So there are other affected grants. I just wanted to run through these again that are kind of in the same boat a little bit with you. One of the ones that we have also is called the Emergency Management Performance Grant, EMPG. We talked about this allows us to reimburse for county positions that are already funded by the county, particularly my position, EM specialist, Care Buckmaster, and our EM office specialist, Kim Gott. As long as we have sufficient training, we demonstrate that, and we're working on certain projects, we make sure we give that to MDIM each year. We're allowed to take that money and give it back to the county for our positions. So far, we have, you see, 2024 and 2023, the awards that were given for us, we're still waiting and have applied for those funds to, again, reimburse the county back. Again, those were money that was paid for in our salaries that were already budgeted. The next one in particular, the State Homeland Security Grant Program. It provides funding for risk reduction activities in the county. And it also covers it's the only position that I have that is being funded for in the EM office, which is fully grant funded by FEMA. The impacts on that right now, to understand the SHSP grants have a 3-year performance period, meaning each year I'm dealing with one of those 3 years. So you can see each year how much was awarded here for 2022, 23, and 24. The amounts that were awarded there, they're close, I rounded up to $100,000, but each year I'm roughly dealing with about $300,000 in grants. But a lot of times I'm only working in 1-year grant, and I'm only working on a few projects at a time as I move through that system. But this just gives you an idea of how that works. So in particular, to give you an idea, I have a few outstanding reimbursements that I'm waiting for from previous years. The video wall down at the alternate EOC, when you all came down and saw some of the new video wall and all that we had there, although it cost more than the amount you see there, that's a remaining amount that I'm still waiting for the state to fund back to us, the $7,246.73. We also installed a cellular repeater system down at 315 Stafford through both floors of the building. Again, it was more than that number, but the remaining amount, $21,551.17, we're still waiting for reimbursement for that. Lastly, we bought some thermal imaging cameras for the Maryland State Police. We're around $10,000 that we've delivered. All of these items have been installed. We can't get them back. We can't take them off the wall and get them back. So we're just waiting for that money to be reimbursed back to the county at this point. Now I have 4 other items underneath of there that are in progress projects right now. Like I said, each year I'm dealing with 3 years worth of grants, but I'm only working on a few grants at a time in that process. These are 4 of those projects that I'm currently working on right now, and I'll tell you why that's important here in a little bit. One is we have an EM analyst who we pay. It's the only position we have in EM that's fully grant funded by FEMA. This person helps me work on that Calvert Alert system, the Everbridge system, that's reverse 911 system. We've been expanding that. Sheriff's Office is using it now. That's where you get all those traffic alerts from. Public Works is using it really good now. We've expanded that out. They're using it so when the water goes down, they can notify the homeowners. We just put it in there as well to help with public safety. So now all the volunteer chiefs know when the water goes down in their area, if they show up, there may not be water in their area. So it's some good things that we're doing, and this position helps me work with that program and continue those programs out there. But that's roughly $35,000 that we forward fund per year for that. We're also in the middle of a procurement process with the Sheriff's Office for civil disturbance gear and a trailer that we're actively working on right now, and that's roughly $23,000. Next, we have a community emergency response team. It's a community-based program that we go out into our communities and work with the homeowners and those folks who want to learn what is it they need to know the first 72 hours when nobody can come show up to help them. This helps forward fund some of the equipment we need and training that we'd like to move out for some of those community-based programs. And lastly, procurement for a security camera. You know, we've got a lot of security cameras here, and they tend to go bad. They're not cheap either. We're working with TS and Rob Denton right now, replacing one of the cameras there. We were hoping to move forward with other cameras as they go out of service to replace some of those. One of the others I was asked to list in here, and again, this is moving so fast, this may or may not be part of that. I do have Barbara Warner is here in the audience as well. She's the grant specialist for public safety and has been working significantly on that program, but we decided to include that here as it is a FEMA program, but we're not sure that it's included right now. But the impact on that, there's about $600,000 unexpended funds for that project that's out there right now, just so you know.
Mike, has that boat been ordered yet?
Barbara?
Barbara Warner, grant writer for the Department of Public Safety. Yes, the boat has been ordered.
And the due
we-
date on that is when?
I believe it was 16 to 18 months out. So it was ordered in November after everything was taken care of. I do want to note that the Port Security Grant Program is not on the list right now, and it didn't appear that it would be. However, everything's at risk right now. So I did ask permission from my FEMA contact, and I actually submitted for reimbursement already because the county's already paid out $735,000, so it's $600,000. So they said the process would take a little bit longer than it normally would, but yesterday evening, I did go ahead and file the paperwork to get reimbursement for what we've already paid out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara. So there's also a few others that may be impacted out there. We have the state and local cybersecurity grant program provides funding for cybersecurity risks. I have talked to Kat and Stephen about these as well. We know there's $47,000 that's being held up right now, still waiting final approval from FEMA for that. I know there's some compliance issues, and they're well aware of that, but we're also looking into these grants as well. So I have a few FAQs here I'll run through real quick, and then I have some recommendations based on what I've shared with you, what I'd like to do, and see if you agree with those recommendations. First, should local government consider moving staff off of federal funds while these reviews are conducted? The short answer is no. The state does have a lot of fully federal funded positions that they have. This is more of an impact for them. The only one that I have is my analyst that helps me with our web EOC and our Calvert Alert system. But the recommendation is that we do not move them off and then try to move them back on. Are there any direct operational impacts to MDEM or MDEM support that locals need to plan for? This is why I'm here before you today. There may be some operational impacts that we incur from some of these projects not moving forward. It's still too early to tell for a lot of these projects. I will tell you that the Secretary Strickland has met with all of the emergency managers in the state. We've only had the opportunity one time They're going to be setting up a recurring call every Thursday. I think they're trying to look into setting up right now. This is moving so fast and the information is moving very fast. We hope to set that up. So hopefully I'll be meeting this Thursday with the secretary again, and we'll be sharing what many of the folks around the state are finding out, what impacts we have, and getting additional information as we learn it. Third one, if these grants are held long-term, will the state step in to provide financial support to locals? If counties continue to spend and grants are revoked, will counties be reimbursed or made whole by the state? I don't know that we need to, I think we all know the answer to this one based on the state where we're at, that we don't expect to see any of these funds being made whole by the state. That's kind of clear to most of us. Should locals continue to apply for, respond to requests for information for open grants? And the short answer is yes. Commissioner Hart, you mentioned the only thing they said they put a hold on us is getting that money back right now. But in your consent agenda, we had another project. We are continuing to move on these for homeowners if they so wish. We're continuing to push the paperwork forward. There's a lot of that needs to be done, and we consider that we'll continue to do that. Right now, it's just the funding that's being held up on these projects. So immediate concerns for us when we were made aware of this on the 28th, which is why I brought it through my chain of command and decided to bring here before the board, was we had a scheduled demolition of the one Cliff House. And I think that's cat's out the bag on that one. We all recognize the county owned this piece of property. We need to make it safe. We need to finish with that, but that was one of our first concerns. The other two were the in-progress elevation and the in-progress acquisition project, what we should do with those. And lastly, the SHSP projects. Should we put a pause on those or a pause on our EML list?
Mike, some of those, if I remember right, they were federal and state granted. Is that correct? Was like a couple hands in that? And like with the elevation, like there was state and federal money, or am I off on that?
The homeowner was tied into that as well.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought there was a few moving pieces, because I remember you really went through it with that. I was wondering, are we just waiting on one piece, and like I said, there's been so much with that. It's very complicated. Am I wrong on that? Was there?
Well, they're all in some type of contract.
Okay.
So the homeowner has to start with voluntarily asking and coming to us. We are their only option to get. They can't go to the state. They can't go to FEMA and ask for this. The FEMA and the state says, you got to go down and see Mike.
Okay.
Down at emergency management.
Okay.
That is the only office where you can apply and work through this progress. Or through this program.
Okay, so, and the only thing at this point is just the FEMA piece. Everything else is still,
Correct. So.
which is a big piece.
Correct. And like I said, since it's forward funded, we go to the state refunds us, then the state goes to FEMA
Okay.
and asks
Got
for
it.
that
That's
portion.
the part I was, okay,
Yep.
that's the piece in the middle. Okay.
And right now FEMA's put a hold on that and the state can't access that system that they normally do. So they're not
Flows
giving us
downhill.
anything either. So
Gotcha.
they're just put a hold all the way down.
Okay.
So lastly, here we are at next to the last slide, but these were my recommendations as I brought this information up to my leadership, that I think we needed to continue with the, obviously, the demolition and making whole the one property that we kind of were too far into that we couldn't stop. Looking at the elevation and acquisition, the two homes, we are very early in those homes. No ground has been broken, no contractors have showed up. We're very early in those. We felt it was reasonable to pause those at this point. So those monies that you saw that were unexpended right now, they'll just sit there. We won't, if it gets to a point where we think we need to cut checks, we're prepared to just put a hold on those right now until we find out what FEMA's, when they're going to release those funds. And lastly, the SHSP projects. We mentioned back in the earlier slide, we had like 4 projects that are in some phase now. They're in finance or procurement that we're working on, which was our EM analyst that we have working. We have the trailer that we were getting for the sheriff's office. We had the camera. And I forget which other project we had there, but it was just those 4. Our recommendation is that we just continue with those because we're kind of in the middle of those right now. and that we just finish up with those projects. Again, those SHSP, I'm dealing with about 300,000 at any given year in one of those. The other projects that I have waiting to move on, we're not going to move on those either. We're just going to wait till we find out what FEMA's position is. We would like to just finish those 4 projects that we are in the middle of and continue with those. And that's it, Commissioners. We're just seeing if you're in agreement with that, where we're at in the state of those. Again, we hope to have some meetings moving forward. If there's any information that the Secretary brings to us, certainly we'll push that up the flagpole and make sure anything gets to your attention if needed. And that's all I have unless you have any questions.
I don't have a problem with your recommendations at all. I do have some concerns when the feds make a move and open up. I sure hope the state knows that this is still part of something they need to fund. I hope because of their budget constraints, the state doesn't hold us responsible or not take responsibility for what they've done in the past. I'm concerned about that, but your recommendations I agree with.
So what was the total cost of those 4 projects you have ongoing? I tried to look back, I couldn't find it.
See if I can go back to 12 real quick. I think it was slide 12.
Is that where it's 12?
Yeah. It's, so those in progress ones are down below there. So it's 35,000, the 23 for the gear, 15,000 for the cert, and 20 for the security camera.
It's about 110,000.
Yeah.
So just to recap, your recommendation is that we allow people to continue to apply, because I think we do have one person that was in progress. That we finish the demolition that we're starting, but we not start any more demolitions or acquisitions until the federal funding gets clearer.
Correct. Those two projects, we still had the 2 homes that were part of that as a group. Again, we're going to continue moving the paperwork. We can
Continue
do that.
planning,
We
right.
just, we're going to hold up on writing any checks until we knew further.
Till we find out.
Yeah.
So, Mr. President, I do have a motion for you if you'd like
Sure.
one. I would like to direct the Office of County Administrator to review and evaluate all existing federal grants currently being utilized by the county agencies and also the Board of Education, and get back to your office as soon as possible.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Your motion is just to
To-
evaluate, gather the
review
information of what's out there.
Of theirs and the BOEs,
So we know what the fiscal impact.
so that we know what the physical impact is and get back to them as soon as possible.
But your motion doesn't encompass his recommendation, correct?
No, it does not.
Okay.
Just
wanna
to
be clear.
just to evaluate.
Right. So I have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand the motion? All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So he wants consensus on their recommendations, correct?
Yes, he wants to know that we agree with what his plan of action is.
I would like to
move
continue with
forward.
these. Some of these are in the middle of the procurement process. They're in our finance, they're setting the workday. I don't know that it's going to create issues with any vendors at this point. They're all in different stages moving through those 4 projects there.
We could accept a motion to accept his recommendations.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendations on slide 20 of the presentation.
Second.
A motion and a second that we accept the recommendations. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing that was scheduled for 10:30, and since we're there, it's Department of Economic Development Budget Amendment for the Capital Improvement Plan Project, Armory Site Development, Rural Maryland Economic Development Grant Award Adjustment. Director Oberg, good morning.
Thank you, Commissioner.
There is one public hearing scheduled for today. The hearing was advertised and the certificate of publications made part of the record of the hearing. Citizens are invited to comment on the hearing after the presentation concludes, and anyone here in person must sign in on the sheet next to the attorney to speak. So I can go ahead and read the memo. The Armory Site Development Project is a capital project managed by the Department of Economic Development, and it was first adopted in FY19. This project aims to construct an open-air multi-use pavilion to enhance the area by creating a vibrant, multi-use space that supports economic growth and community engagement. To support this initiative, the project has received funding through the Rural Maryland Economic Development Fund, overseen by the Maryland Department of Commerce and administered by the 5 rural regional councils. The fund is designed to stimulate economic activity, attract private sector investment, and create jobs in Maryland's rural regions. Discussion. The Department of Economic Development received notice that their Rural Maryland Economic Development Grant Award through the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland has been modified to include new funds from a state reallocation. The open-air multi-use pavilion permitting and construction project at the Armory Building Site and Prince Frederick Town Center project has been allocated an additional $454,270.67. These funds will support the inclusion of an ice rink and additions to the commercial kitchen in the pavilion project design. The enhancements aim to stimulate business activity, support entertainment, farmers markets, and foster community events. Fiscal impact. The Armory Site Development Project is assigned CIP number 12, Budget Amendment BA 2025-003 310 has been created to allocate the additional grant funding. Conclusion, recommendation, the Department of Economic Development requests the Board of County Commissioners conduct a public hearing, and if deemed appropriate, based on the record, approve and adopt the proposed resolution and budget amendment to allocate the additional grant funding from the Rural Maryland Economic Development. Okay, so I guess then we go.
There are no speakers, so you don't have to read the next part.
Okay. So then what?
Is it Bill?
Is there,
You ready for
are
motion?
there any questions?
I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be a very nice amenity in the center of town. I think it's a great, great opportunity. You know, just a nice thing in the community. You know, with all the negativity out there, this is going to be really nice. I'm really happy. I can't wait.
I'm excited. Good
Motion?
job.
Thank you.
So I move that we close the record and approve and adopt the resolution and budget amendment BA 2025-000310.
Second.
Have a motion and a second that we close the record and approve and adopt the resolution and budget amendment BA 2025-000310. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if it would please the commissioners, I'd like to invite John Hartline, who is the Executive Director of the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland, if he could come up and say a few words.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation based on the outcome of the budget hearing. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for inviting me here. I really appreciate it. Just up front, I just wanted to mention, I wanted to mention Greg. He's been a big part of what the Tri-County Councils did. And I first met Greg 11 years ago, right after I came to the council. He was an employee at SMATIC, 1099 employee. And he's been, I've been faced with him a number of times on the Patuxent River Commission. But I'm here for some good news. I'm listening to all this dire economic news, and the Rural Maryland Economic Development Fund was funded under the Hogan administration. The idea behind it was economic development in the rural areas so they could fully recover from the pandemic and the prior economic woes of the of 2008, 9, and 10. Turns out that the rural areas were the slowest areas to recover. So the governor decided, with a little help from a retiring Senator Edwards from Western Maryland to give each one of the Tri-County Councils $10 million to do projects. In Southern Maryland, the Tri-County Council put forward 29 projects, and one of those was suggested from Calvert County for the Armory Square. And some of the projects came under budget, and we got the funds, we retained the funds. Some of the projects couldn't be done because of various permitting problems and the usual things you do when you're trying to do development. Ultimately, we got back, the Tri-County Council didn't fund about $1.5 million. We found out from the Department of Commerce that their preference was not to take the money back, but to allocate it to the successful projects. And Calvert County has one of those, and when I called Julie Olberg late on a Friday afternoon, she was the only economic development person to answer the telephone. So I congratulate you on a good choice. She still works late on Friday afternoon. And I have here a check for forward funding, not reimbursement, forward funding of $454,270.67. And usually when you see 66 or 67 cents, there's a part of a penny. I gave the penny to Calvert County because Commissioner
Charles
Hans
St.
was the
Mary's.
chairman at the time. So thank you for your service to the council.
Thank
So
you.
you have your check.
Perfect, someone right up front.
So, Julie, what's the total contribution from the council towards the project?
$2,060,000 plus the new amount.
Just want to make sure everybody understood, it's not just the 400,000, this is an additional 400,000, the total is over 2 million, so.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
nice, thank you.
Yeah, if you don't mind. It's all set up. Yeah. Go ahead and press it once, see. It'll take a bunch of pictures.
I never. Oh, we're gonna make that.
Yeah, you can have magic in this.
All right. Let me get my hands on the check. So we have a.
You've never seen that again.
All right, scooch in a little bit.
I am very afraid of you.
All right, smile. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Your pictures today?
I have pictures from up in Annapolis the other day for District 27. I'm going to send them over to.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Julie.
I think there's a mistake this is made out to the county commissioner. I'm not Earl Hands.
I'll take it.
So, John, we do thank you very much. And like I said, we got that money unfortunately because other counties couldn't complete their projects, and it was a reallocation. So, going to give credit to staff. They stayed on task, kept the project moving, so it met all the criteria because other counties couldn't do that. So we got paid for our hard work. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Director Oberg and your staff for continuing to push that project. We can't wait for the groundbreaking. So make sure we have John over for groundbreaking. So thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a work session, Department of Human Resources Personnel Chapter 86 Code Amendments, Part 3, Pay Plan and Adjustments.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Melanie Woodson, the Human Resources Director. Dina Davis, Human Resources Deputy Director.
And Bruce Miller, Finance Director.
Come on.
Good morning. So Commissioners, we are here today. It's been almost a year since we last came to you about Part 3 of Chapter 86. And hopefully, we've been able to answer some of the questions that you have. We've conducted a little bit of research, provided some additional data and statistics, and are here with a update that we hope you will find to be efficient and effective and a good use of the taxpayers' resources. We are here to answer any questions that you may have. Dina Davis is the project manager for the Calvert County Code. I'll start by reading the memo, and then Dina will jump right into the presentation. The Department of Human Resources is moving forward with a comprehensive review of Personnel Chapter 86 of the County Code. Our goal for this review is to simplify, deconflict, update, and render best practices to our existing personnel policies. Significant updates to Chapter 86 were adopted in 2016, 2006, 2009, and 2017, with amendments proposed and adopted as necessary in the intervening years. Today's presentation is a follow-up to directives issued at the April 30th, 2024 work session. Included in this discussion are survey results from other jurisdictions regarding their overtime calculation, premium pay, and compensatory leave policies. Fiscal impact to be determined. Conclusion recommendation, staff requests the Board of County Commissioners provide further direction for the proposed amendments to Part 3, pay plan and adjustments.
Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to return and complete our presentation on Chapter 86 amendments. A little bit of background so we can pick up where we left off. All personnel policy for Calvert County government employees are outlined in the Code of Calvert County. Today, we're here to discuss Part 3, which is pay plan and adjustments. The Code of Calvert County, Chapter 86, governs employee rights, responsibilities, and workplace standards. HR has been conducting a full review of Personnel Chapter 86, and our effort is to ensure that our policies remain effective, clear, and are aligned with county goals. Our objectives are to simplify, make our policies easier to understand and apply, deconflict, which would resolve inconsistencies or contradictions within the code, update our policies to ensure they reflect current laws, best practices, and organizational needs, and render best practice, which would align policies with industry standards for effective workforce management. Chapter 86, Chapter 3, work session was held on April 30th as part of our ongoing policy review process. The process for changing Chapter 86, first, HR initiates the process by drafting amendments to address policy updates and improvements. These amendments are shared with all Calvert County government department heads for their input and feedback. And a work session with the Board of County Commissioners is conducted to gather additional feedback and direction. After incorporating feedback, the amendments are sent to the County Attorney's Office for legal review, and then we'll schedule a public hearing, allowing community members to provide their input. The Board of County Commissioners would vote on the amendments after the 10-day review period following the public hearing, and upon approval, the amended Chapter 86 is officially adopted to ensure compliance with best practices. One of the things that we needed to address after our first presentation was that we were using key terms that needed a little bit more explanation. So these next several slides will provide some definitions. First is the Fair Labor Standards Act, or the FLSA. This establishes key labor protections for our workforce, including minimum wage, overtime pay, record-keeping requirements, and child labor standards. This is a federal law. It applies to full-time and part-time workers, both in the private sector and the government workforce. Minimum wage the federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour. It has been unchanged since 2009. Luckily, the state of Maryland has passed a law where we have a much higher minimum wage. That's the wage that we use, $15 per hour. The FLSA does not limit the number of hours an employee can be scheduled or required to work in a day or a week. The next key term is FLSA non-exempt. FLSA non-exempt employees are employees whose primary job duties do not meet the exemption criteria under the FLSA. Overtime pay is required for any hours worked over 40 hours per week at the rate of 1.5 times the regular rate of pay. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but Calvert County is currently more generous than the FLSA requires us to be. 869 employees, 63% of our workforce are classified as FLSA non-exempt. These employees must track their work hours to ensure compliance with federal and state labor laws. The next key term is FLSA exempt. These are our salaried employees. These are employees in executive, administrative, computer, or professional roles whose primary job duties meet the exemption criteria under the FLSA. These employees are not eligible for overtime under FLSA regulations. Although overtime pay is not required for salaried employees, the county again chooses to be more generous than the FLSA, and we choose to provide one-time comp time for exempt employees in emergency situations. 285 employees, that's almost 21% of our workforce, are considered FLSA exempt. The next term is FLSA partially exempt. These are our public agency, police department employees, sheriff's office employees from deputy sheriff through the rank of deputy sheriff first sergeant. Also includes all of our correctional deputies. These employees, the FLSA allows the sheriff to establish a work period between 7 and 28 days instead of the standard 40-hour work week for the computation of overtime. Overtime is required only after a specific number of hours within the designated work period. For Calvert County deputies and correctional deputies, it is a 14-day work period. We have 212 employees, or 15.5% of our workforce, are FLSA partially exempt. I would also like to note that sheriff's lieutenants, captains, and majors, they are considered FLSA exempt and they do not fall in this category. They are not eligible for overtime. Calvert County's current overtime policy, as I've stated, is more generous than the FLSA requires. For our full-time, non-exempt employees, we pay daily overtime. It's 1.5x for hours worked beyond their daily schedule. It's either 1.5 times cash or 1.5 times comp time. FLSA non-exempt employees may accrue up to 240 hours of comp time. That is the FLSA limit. And for these employees, paid leave time counts as time worked for overtime calculation. For our exempt employees, our salaried employees, again, they're not eligible for overtime. However, Calvert County chooses to provide 1x comp time for these employees in the case of an emergency, and they also may accrue up to 240 hours of comp time. For our partially exempt employees with the sheriff's office, they have the extended work period of 14 days. They receive 1.5x for hours worked beyond the 80 hours in a pay period. That's either 1.5x cash or 1.5x comp time. And again, this is for deputy sheriff through deputy sheriff first sergeant ranks and our correctional deputies. Per the FLSA, these employees, the partially exempt employees, may accrue up to 480 hours of comp time. And again, paid leave time is counted as time worked for the overtime calculation.
Dina, may I ask you a question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
The 480 hours of comp time that they can accrue, and then the 240 hours of comp time that they can accrue. Are they required to use comp time first before they use their leave?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Our
thank you.
internal policy is that comp time is used before other types of leave.
Are they doing that?
We have a comp time reduction program where staff in our department is reviewing comp time.
Okay.
And we are notifying department heads if comp time is not being used
Not
first.
being used. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So if that's the case, shouldn't a person not have any comp time balance at all at the end of the year, or they lost their personal leave? Which way does that work? Because personal leave is an annual type leave that has to be used or lost.
The guidance for our managers, for department heads from the Department of Human Resources is that comp time is used first. So if they don't use all of their comp time, then they wouldn't be able to use their personal leave.
Is that common practice, or is that what suggestion is?
So the way the policy is written, and we are recommending an update to the policy to allow for personal leave to be used before comp. And right now, we do allow employees, it's not codified, but employees are using their personal leave, 35 hours, 1 week of personal, before their comp, so that at the end of the year, they're not just throwing their personal leave away.
Okay,
But we do need to update the verbiage in the policy.
yes, thank you.
What was the reason between 240 hours and 480 hours difference between the two departments,
So,
two workforces?
public safety, law enforcement,
So does EMS get 480 also?
they do not fall under that exemption. EMS does not. It's for fire, and we don't have fire here employed with the county, so it only pertains to law enforcement.
Some more workforce statistics. As the commissioners know, we have several employees, a group of employees that full-time is 35 hours. So our full-time staff that works 35 hours per week is 561 employees, approximately 43%. We do have full-time employees that are 40 hours per week. 414 employees fall into this category, approximately 45%. And then we have 391 employees who are part-time, and their hours, weekly hours vary. Commissioners, when we met with you last time, you asked us to survey fellow counties. So we sent out a pay survey and also a comp time survey. We'll provide those results next. So 14 counties responded to a survey, including Charles County and St. Mary's County, regarding their pay practices. We asked them, do you follow standard FLSA guidelines for providing overtime over 40 hours per week? Are non-productive hours included in the overtime calculation? Do FLSA exempt or salaried employees receive overtime? Do you provide standby pay? Do you provide call-in pay? Do you provide night shift differential? And do you provide field training officer pay, also known as FTO pay?
But Dina, just a second, go back a second. The first question talked about providing overtime pay after 40 hours. Some of those counties work 35-hour work weeks,
Yes, sir, I
but they
will,
don't pay overtime until you get to 40.
correct. I'll address that in the next slide.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Thank you.
So all of the responding jurisdictions pay overtime over 40 hours. And to your point, Commissioner, Charles County is similar to Calvert, with the majority of their employees working a full-time work week that is less than 40 hours. They have 37.5. They also pay overtime, meaning that time and a half rate over 40. So they follow the FLSA.
Do they have a 40-hour work week also over there? Or just
I don't know the
35?
answer to that. I'm assuming that their deputies work 40. I don't have that information. I can look that up. We can reach out to them. The majority of the counties that we surveyed do not include non-productive hours, i.e. time on paid leave, in the overtime calculation. We asked about standby pay. This would be a new initiative that the Department of Human Resources is recommending. 10 counties that responded provide standby pay, and the compensation ranges from $40 to $200 per week. One county provides comp time. We are recommending a daily stipend of $22.50 per day for non-exempt and partially exempt employees assigned to standby duty. As I noted, we currently do not provide standby pay.
Dina, do we know how much this is going to cost us, this standby pay?
Yes, sir. The standby pay will approximate $206,000 of additional expense.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And that number's based on a survey of employees, so you know how many are on standby?
We surveyed department heads, and the information that we gathered, there would be 19 total employees who are paid standby pay. It would rotate in certain departments, and the sheriff's department also indicated that there would be 10 to 15 deputies on standby during an operation. So 19 on a daily basis, and then that number would occasionally be bumped up by 10 or 15.
Just a comment. I do, and I may be confused on this, but if we have employees working 35-hour weeks and employees working 40 hours a week, it seems to me that the 35-hour per week employees should start getting overtime once they get up to 36 hours. I think that's their cutoff. I don't think they should have to get up to 40. And as far as standby pay goes, I've talked with you about this and I've looked into this. I don't think anybody should be made to stay home, miss a ball game, not share a glass of wine with someone at dinner, and then we don't pay them for being standby. Standby is fair, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. The next slide is call-in pay. Calvert County currently does have a call-in pay policy. This would be for an employee who's called in outside their normal work hours. We pay them time and a half currently for non-exempt employees. And we currently pay exempt employees, remember our salaried employees, we pay them 1x comp time. So 10 counties provide call-in pay for their employees. They provide either a minimum of 2 or 3 hours. Calvert County, we provide a minimum of 2 hours, and the rates vary. So we are proposing to eliminate call-in pay for exempt employees.
And just as a reminder, exempt employees are generally contract or salaried employees that can't normally get overtime anyway.
Correct. We queried other counties on their shift differential policy. 11 counties provide shift differential. Eligibility hours and rates vary from 75 cents to $2.50 per hour. Currently, Calvert County provides $1.50 shift differential for regular hours worked and $2.25 for overtime hours worked. This is a pay premium that they receive on top of their regular pay rate. We are proposing to expand eligibility for shift differential and changing the hours to 6 p.m. through 6 a.m.
And what are they currently? 7 to 7?
So currently, we only provide shift differential for very specific positions within public safety. It's those employees that receive and dispatch emergency and non-emergency calls, and are law enforcement sworn members of the sheriff's office and the detention center. They have to work a qualifying shift that begins before 6 a.m. or after 9 a.m. And then shift differential is paid for hours worked between 4 p.m. and 8 a.m. The beginning of the presentation, one of the things that we aim to do is to simplify our policies. And by changing it to expanding the eligibility to all non-exempt employees, not just those specific positions in public safety, and then changing the hours from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So any hours worked between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., those employees would receive the shift differential. This is premium pay for those less desirable hours that employees may be required to work.
So if I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I'm hired to be a night, whatever that position is, I'm hired to only work at night after the courthouse closes, maybe before it opens. I'm automatically going to get shift differential, even though that's my normal job.
Correct. Again, pay premium for working undesirable hours.
What's the fiscal impact on that change, going 6 to 6 from what we currently have?
It's actually a savings,
Is it a savings?
of approximately $52,000
Okay.
because the time period has been condensed. But I believe there's 3 to 5 people that would qualify. Custodians would be an example.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Field training officer pay. We currently have field training officer pay, FTO pay. We have an eligibility group that includes deputy sheriffs, correctional deputies, and non-supervisory public safety call takers, public safety dispatcher trainees, and public safety dispatcher ones. We are proposing 3 additional job titles to that eligibility group: career paramedics, career emergency technicians, career emergency medical technicians, and Sheriff's Communications Officer 2s. And late last week, the sheriff also requested a change to include Sheriff's Communication Officer 1s. We will include that in our final amendment.
Someone's going to have to convince me of this one, because what I don't understand is for K-9 and field training officers, if you're already an employee and you are helping with training and K-9 handling and it's within your work hours, why would we consider this? So in the meantime, you don't have to answer me now, but anybody who can convince me that this is different from out of work hours time and why you deserve a differential, I'd like to know. Thank you.
Make a note. I also would like to add that we are also proposing to increase the rate of FTO pay that we currently pay. Right now, it's $1 per hour, and we're proposing $2 per hour.
What did we pay out last year on this?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I didn't hear your
What
question.
did we pay out last year on this?
On FTO pay?
Yes.
I don't have.
I don't have the dollar. I can get back to you.
Okay.
But the projection is that'll cost an additional $23,000.
23 more, okay.
Yes, sir.
So why are we only including those individual jobs?
So I believe that this was originally a request from the sheriff many years ago to add FTO pay for deputy sheriffs and correctional deputies, so they would receive that premium pay for each hour that they instruct a probationary employee. Almost immediately after the board approved it, the public safety director at the time said, hey, we want that for in our 911 center. So we added those as well. The board approved it.
Well, if I was any other county employee, I would raise my hand too. What's the difference?
Understood.
I mean, they're arguing that it's a lot more work to train a new individual.
Yes,
So
sir.
regardless of this group, we have other county employees that train other county employees to do their jobs.
Yes, sir. We were, it was proposed to us that it is a, public safety,
Centric.
public safety centric premium pay.
That's cost.
Just ask them.
We appreciate the questions. And when we were here last time, there were quite a few questions about K-9 handler pay, so we do provide K-9 handler pay. It is paid to sworn law enforcement who kennel and care for their service K-9. We have 10 sheriff's deputies that are assigned to the K-9 handler unit. They receive a K-9 premium of $2 for every hour worked or unpaid leave, and that is $4,160 premium pay. We are not proposing any changes.
Got to make sure those dogs get fed.
So that number's actually times 10 based on this, correct?
Yes, because we currently have 10 sheriff's deputies assigned to the canine handler
So
unit.
it's 42, whatever the number is.
So do they volunteer to do that, or are they assigned a dog and say,
Well, they-
here, you're
No, they apply for it, just like anything else. You want to talk about it all, Sheriff?
And I was gonna hold my questions till the end, but I did have something on, with the canines, cause I know last time we addressed, they were having to wait for like veterinarian services and food, and did we ever take care of where, now that we have a veterinarian and we have food and stuff to,
They're supposed to be doing
assist with that, did we ever get that completed? Do we know?
Can we wait till the end question?
No, you can come on up, because it's a lot of stuff, so we might as well do it as we go.
Go ahead.
Sheriff, did we ever help the canine unit with that where in the past they were having to schedule veterinarian appointments and try to take care of that? Now that we have a vet on staff and we have food and things of that, did we ever take care of that to help that unit out?
Correct, we did.
Okay, good.
Are we adding more dogs, deleting dogs? I know there was something going on about we were changing the kind of dogs we got.
Correct, yeah, with the
can you
new
add-
laws in place with marijuana, we kind of reduced that because now that a dog is trained in marijuana, he's useless in that area of marijuana.
Yeah.
But we've cross-trained the dogs, just in that sense of marijuana, not useless, but he's able to track and stuff like that. So most of our dogs are dual trained,
Yep.
so.
And you have 10 of them now, and,
But with the change of the law, it did hurt us a lot with that, so.
okay. And you
Now we have to
10
train new
available
dogs.
now?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And in the future, we're going to add or delete from that?
My
10
goal is to
number?
have 2 per district.
Okay.
That's my goal right now,
Great, thank you.
and I think that works out well for everybody.
Can those
And it
dogs-
is a lot
Is
taking
that
care of those dogs.
Working at any given time, 2 per district, working at any given time? Or?
Correct, yes. Or yes, sir.
So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 dogs is where you
And
want
that gives me ability to, if one's not in 2, they can call 3 and the dog, they can work that out. It's been working well, actually.
Are they been able to be, some of the ones for marijuana, been able to be trained for opiates? I know it's 2 different things, or.
No, once they're trained in a certain drug,
That's it?
correct, yes. Because they don't know what the dog can't tell us what he smelled, what he's hitting on, the exact drugs.
Because they're incredible. I've watched them.
Absolutely.
They're incredible. So has that hurt us?
So court purposes, we made a decision just to train a dog in a certain drug and move forward with that dog, so. We knew this was gonna be an impact when that new laws took place, so we've kind of got ahead of the game on that.
Are we still able to have the dogs for schools to go through, or has that hurt us with all that?
Anytime that you guys want it, or the school board wants it, we have the ability to do that anytime.
Yeah, at one point, I was, they were saying no. And then at one point, they'd opened it up for us to be able to sweep the schools. I didn't know if we were still able to sweep schools to check for opiates and things of that nature.
Historically, we've done it once a year, but I'm open to do it whenever you guys want to.
But you could still check a school for marijuana, right? Because it's illegal for minors.
Correct.
Yeah,
Oh, that's true.
yeah.
That's true.
They could still go sweep for that.
Well, I know, they used to push back. And then, that was a big thing, previous years ago, and they did not want you there. And then, it seemed to soften that tone. But especially we've heard all the vaping and all the things like that nature and all, I don't know if we were able to sweep those lockers and make sure there is no marijuana or what have you, because that's a good point, right? That's illegal for minors. So,
I agree with you on that.
Sheriff, if, you heard my comment about the canine handlers and the other one. I think you'd probably be the best one for me to sit down and talk to about that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I can bring our trainer, I can bring the deputies that specialize in that to give you more information.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
So the FTO pay 2 is what you're talking about? Okay.
Yes, yes.
I can tell you that should be hazardous duty pay. You know what it's like sitting in the front seat of that car and you're the passenger and somebody's chasing somebody? It isn't fun.
I've been there before, and I can speak from experience on that one.
it's a lot of responsibility.
It
It's a
is.
whole lot of responsibility.
And plus, at the end of the cycle of the FTO period, that FTO has to sign off on that book. So it's pretty much on you that, if anything outside of what that deputy does is you train that person, so that's a lot of responsibility as well.
Give me a call and we'll set up.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Don't go far.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because I have more questions, but at the end, I was gonna let you finish, so.
No, we've had great questions too, and they've been great with us. We worked through it well, so thank you.
Thank you.
We also surveyed counties regarding compensatory leave, which we call comp time. The results will be on the next slides. We asked, does your jurisdiction provide compensatory leave in lieu of overtime? Are exempt employees, your salaried employees, eligible to receive comp time? And do you limit comp time accrual? One county does not provide comp time at all. 3 counties provide 1x comp time for exempt employees. Calvert County's comp time cap ranges from 150% to 500% higher than all but one of the surveyed counties. And 1 county pays out comp time balances every March.
Why do you have to pay it out if that's what they're supposed to be using in lieu of leave? Or is it because we give so much comp time it's impossible to use it up?
Well, so the survey results, that's what another jurisdiction does, pays it out every March.
Okay.
And as you know, comp time is given in lieu of paid overtime, so there is a cash value that you are obligated to provide an employee if they do not use that time.
Okay.
And typically, the purpose of paying it out is because as the pay grade changes, you're paying out at a higher level. So
Oh,
you get the
they could be at
liability.
one step and if they hold on to it, okay. But isn't overtime great? Cash is king. Okay,
Payout's better.
okay.
Well, a lot of it's being done because of taxes. I mean, you get somebody that has 20 or 30 hours of overtime because they had an emergency that they worked, several nights over. That time span, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take half overtime and half comp time to avoid the taxes. But
But at the end of the day, Commissioner Arlen, when they get that payout, don't they have to pay taxes on it then?
if it's part of their 80-hour work week, it's not in that other bracket.
So when they get paid out at the end of their
Oh, if they get
career,
paid out,
at
yes,
the
I'm
end of
sorry,
their-
yes. But if they're
their
using the
time.
comp time as they go along,
So
no.
either way, they're gonna pay Uncle Sam.
Well, you can defer part of
He's gonna
it
get
at the
his.
end of it, but. So the cap, go backwards, there was, on the survey, everybody capped it. But our cap range was much higher than everybody else's. Have we looked at reducing our cap range?
We don't cap. So the
Well, we do under
FLSA,
FLS,
well, the
standards.
FLS, yes, we
Yeah,
follow the
right.
FLSA cap of
Right.
240 or 480 hours. That would be a consideration, that we could cap the amount of comp time employees can earn.
So I know this is going to cost us a little bit of money to get rid of this program. Have we thought about phasing it out over 2 years or 3 years?
Bruce?
Well,
The cost difference between,
Well, actually, everything being equal, we have about $1.4 million liability today. A option would be to pay that over time, but we're recommending the use of fund balance. So therefore, the cash flow issue is really taken off the table. If you, depending upon, again, the amount of time you defer that total payout, you're going to incur those additional increases.
Okay.
So that will continue to compound.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
So just for the public that's watching, if they don't understand why we're having this conversation, the issue is that an employee starts his employment at Calvert County government at $15 an hour. He accrues whatever number of hours of comp time. He carries that throughout his entire career. And if he has that at the end of his career, whatever salary level he's at when he leaves, that's what we pay his leave out at. So you can earn that leave at $15 an hour. When you leave county government, you're making $60. We have to pay you $60 an hour for that. Comp
Correct.
time you earned at 10. So we've talked different scenarios to try to alleviate, because that creates a tremendous liability for us, for employees,
That's correct.
that we have to account for. And we've talked through different scenarios to try to reduce that. And there are laws that say what we can and cannot do, so we have to follow those. So that's why this discussion is important. It's trying to figure out the financial impact of the county. Because if we completely eliminated it today, as we say, we have to pay out all those employees that have accumulated whatever they have today. I'm just using today as an example. It's not going to happen today. But moving forward in the next budget cycle, all those employees would have to get paid time and a half overtime, which would be an impact to that current budget year. So we can pay the comp time out today using fund balance, which is the smart way to do that. But then there's an impact to the budgets following, because now they're getting paid overtime, and we've got to be prepared for that. So the question is going to be, what's that going to cost us moving forward on an annual basis to cover that comp time through overtime, which is time and a half?
Correct.
And don't you think that, I always go back to what I used to do, but like the sheriff's department is working towards autonomy. And it'll be a little while, but I know that's one thing the sheriff's department would like to have. Don't we want to make our leaders responsible for their budgets and overtime be included in that? Certainly, if you had a wackadoo year, we certainly wouldn't want to not pay our employees if you run a little tight on overtime. But I believe in responsibility. I believe in giving people an amount of money and having it do with it as they may. Having said that, again, I don't want our sheriffs to ever be at a disadvantage when they are providing a service for the public, and it's a service that is very dangerous. So I'd like to see more of that within county government as well with overtime, that people are more responsible for their overtime.
And they are, but at the end of the day, they're going to come for us for funding.
Of course, of course.
So,
But, I mean, I didn't manage a budget for any dangerous jobs, but they knew at the beginning of the year that this is what overtime they would be given. If something critical came up,
Right.
we would make adjustments.
Yep.
Yeah.
So- Good.
we just have to figure out what that is annually.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're taking away one component and replacing it with something
Right.
else, you need to know what that cost is. 'Cause-
Oh, definitely,
yeah.
definitely. You need to have that and have input from our employees because they know best. The sheriff knows what he needs and so on and so forth, so.
So Sheriff, do you or Captain Payne want to talk on comp time and how it would affect you guys and? I'm sorry, you're not captain anymore, sorry about that, yeah.
Whatever you want, Commissioner. Lieutenant Colonel Payne, Sheriff's Office, Assistant Sheriff. Speak on behalf of the sheriff as kind of participated in some of these things with Melanie and Linda and everyone else that were in these meetings. It's a lot of work that goes beyond even here. It goes all the way down to some of the junior level staff that I talked to in the last couple of days to get a lot of real numbers. And, comp time is a big issue for us. When we first started this presentation, one of the things on there was we were trying to make sure that things were operationally work for everyone. We're looking at these changes. Well, eliminating comp time doesn't necessarily work for us operationally unless we were to add about $800,000 to our budget in overtime. When I took the numbers from last year, the last calendar year of comp time that was earned, compared it to the comp time that was actually taken, and when you start looking at that, it's going to cost us around that, and that's conservative.
So annually, just want to follow up on it.
Yes.
So annually, it costs your department $800,000 a year in comp time.
No. If you eliminate comp time, the way that it's used, it will cost us that in overtime now. Because currently what happens, and I don't know if the assumptions are necessarily this or not, comp time, when we use it, we don't have another person work overtime in his place. We only use it when we're available to use it, so it's hours, not money. So we're able to give some hours here and there, instead of money. And it becomes really huge when you start talking about, and it's the reason that ours is 480 and not 240. It becomes a really big issue when you have big catastrophes and we have extended plans. All of our COOP plans in the entire county, to include yours and ours, have to do with extending shifts. That's the first thing you do. You extend them to 12, 16 hours, whatever they are. When you do that, it adds up very quickly. Some of that, if it's a national thing or state, will get reimbursed. That's fine, but not all of them. We have a big murder investigation, can cost us $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Missing kid, those things are expensive, and comp time helps us with that. It's got to be managed better. We need to take it and have the ability to use it so that it doesn't cost money, and I get all that, but it would severely hinder us if we did away with comp time.
So would you be opposed to annual payouts?
No.
Okay.
If it was up to me, I would cap it at a lower amount, and I've shared this in the meetings. I would cap it at a lower amount, and I'd pay it out every March. It's the same thing. No one's gained any money, which is the end result of this. Doesn't cost any money. We're still able to use it as a tool. So,
On average, how many comp time hours do the sheriff's deputies carry?
it varies. It's gone down quite a bit this last year because we have worked with HR, and we've identified a lot that had big hours. Because to go back to what I said earlier, if we don't allow them to use the comp time, or any leave for that matter, if it's going to require a shortage somewhere. So that carries sometimes. And the exact number that we earned last year was 20,000 hours, and that's everybody. That's detention center, sheriff's office employees, to include civilians. And we burned about 19,000 something. We were about 1,500 hours short of being equal of what's earned and what's spent. It equates to about 5.5 hours an employee a year that they earn that carries over. So it's really not much when you average it out. So
An annual payout, I'm going to have to talk about that. I'd
Well,
like to know
if
what
you-
that's going to be. And do you feel that the sheriff's office really handles comp time effectively? Do you have employees who are just using it? And I'm talking about in this building as well, using it as a savings account, and when they retire,
Sure.
they get a little extra change.
Sure, any
Because
employees-
we can't do that as a county
correct.
government. We're in critical condition.
The employees are going to use whatever they can do to get the most benefit they can get. That's their job to do that, right? And it's our job to control that as best we can.
Okay.
And I think that the way to control that is you cap that at whatever hours you decide to cap it at, and then it's
Okay.
budgetary. You can figure it out, then it's not anybody that's an outlier that's above that amount. And we have programs in place for the whole county. Everybody's using that Workday and all this stuff. It should automatically just go. I don't understand why it doesn't just automatically go to the leave that it's required to take. So if you take leave and it's supposed to be comp time first, take the comp time first. And it would alleviate a lot of that. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Allen?
So we talked about capping it, and you talked about the payout. They've done payouts in the past, years ago, for comp time. Think about your number for your cap and where it works for you.
I'm at 100.
You're at 100?
That's what the jail does already without being told to do so.
So theirs cap is at 100.
That's what they set their cap at. So if they get their employees over, now, there's an outlier here and there, something happens, but they try to stay at 100 hours. They've done that for the last year and a half or so. It's reduced it quite a bit. It's tougher for us to do that, but we are definitely, we get the emails quarterly from, I guess they're quarterly now, from Melanie's people. And they show us who took leave and didn't take comp time. And, we get that to the supervisors, and that's slowly going down, which I think those numbers from 2024, so I think those are going down. They're trending down, I guess is a good way to put it.
So Bruce, could you talk to us about, just like,
You don't.
No, no,
well,
I'm
no,
not.
Okay.
I need him too, but
Okay.
what I'm saying is, he's saying pay it out every March, but that's still in the same budget cycle. Have we talked about paying it out in the next budget cycle so we can prepare for it in March, but pay it out in the next cycle through a budget cycle?
Let me understand.
So he wants to pay out every March.
To pay it out every March, I would do it at year end, quite honestly, June 30th. It follows the budget cycle. You're equating current year salaries to current year budget. It's just a cleaner process.
So you wouldn't take it
I went,
one more budget cycle.
no, I went, because again, you're compounding, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
If you do it as June 30th, it's a clean break, and you're off to the races for the next fiscal year.
Did you all look at, I'm sorry, Colonel Payne, did you all look at how much comp time was accrued like last year? Because you track that through,
Yes.
so you know, how many hours did we accrue for comp time for last year?
Colonel Payne hit the numbers right on the head. There's 28,000 hours.
20,000 for.
That was just us.
But that was gross. And then you used leave, so
We
you
used-
had a 1,500.
We used $1,500 hours.
1,500 hours.
Less, I guess, were the balance.
How about for the rest of county government?
We have that. I didn't bring that with me. But we definitely have that.
Because that would help us figure out what the annual payout would be.
Yes,
Give you,
yes.
you could look back a couple of years
Definitely.
at, and as he said, it's trending down, which
Sure.
would be helpful too. But we could at least look back the last 3 years, and that would give us an idea of what that annual payout would look out for our budget. Figuring out what the budget looks like. And for you, I'm making an assumption. You chose March because it was up on the screen, but you got,
Doesn't matter.
nobody would really matter.
Doesn't.
Sometime during the year, when it's appropriate, we would make that distribution.
Exactly.
So, I'm sorry.
One of the other things that you brought up and Payne was talking about, and as far as it's the employee's job to make it work for them, what are we calling it? The call-out pay or standby pay, whichever way it goes. Is there a concern that, I mean, you all have labeled how many? 12, 15 employees only out of the entire sheriff's office?
Say that again? I missed it.
You've only labeled like 12 or 15 employees out of the entire sheriff's office as far as being on call?
I think we actually have 6 that are full-time on call that meet that definition as it stands. We have another, I don't know what it was, Melanie, 10 or 12 total. Well, actually more than that, when you count the whole team. But we have more that would possibly, we have 10 or 12 incidents throughout the year when other employees could be included in that. For example, a search warrant that is, people are on standby for 4 hours while they're waiting to see if it's going to get signed or not signed, that sort of thing. Those would be intermittent, what I would call them, on-call people. By definition, as it sits today, we have 6 that are full-time now. I get what you're getting at, and I think we talked about this a little bit. Yeah, we probably would be in an area in which it could be expanded, maybe expanded, when we're gone years from now or whatever, I don't know, so.
Right, well, I mean, I see a lot of people trying to come forward and say, hey, I'm on call. If I don't come out for this, the K-9, DRE, intox operator, and the list goes on and on and on.
Definitely has to be managed, it definitely has to be watched, and it has to be, audited from time to time, but yeah, I agree.
But in your situation, an officer could be called in at any time.
That's correct.
That doesn't necessarily mean he's
That's
on
correct.
standby.
That is,
I think,
what's the other pay
I
called?
think that's the
Melanie?
difference.
That's emergency call-in pay.
Emergency call.
Yeah.
So they still would get compensated? They just didn't, I think you used the analogy, didn't refrain from having a glass of wine with someone else or someone.
Yeah.
Maybe not a glass of wine is a good example, but you know what I mean?
Certain positions are classified as on-call.
That's correct.
So they can't.
We have crime
She
lab
said-
techs that are on call. We have 2 of them. They're on call 1 week, off call 1 week. So every other week, they can't do anything.
If an emergency arises, they're all on call.
That's correct.
At
And then
end
the
of
other
day.
part of that we talked about is if they're in that on-call status and they get called and they don't come out, there are some teeth there to for some sort of a punishment there.
And this, I get confused sometimes. One of them is if you show up, you're guaranteed a certain number of hours. Even
Emergency
if you-
call-in.
If they call you in and say
correct.
you're en route and you turn them around.
We get called in
That
for
would
court, happens
qualify
all the
them.
time. You get called in for court, they're only there for 35 minutes. It's a minimum of 2 hours, I believe.
Because they had to get ready, come in.
That's right.
So this is their reimbursement for,
That's correct.
and I think we're okay with that.
Dana, I don't know if you will recall this, but when we met, I wrote down Sheriff's Office comp time, $800,000. Is that a payout we did last year? Where did I get that number from?
That's the
Pam just
current,
said it.
that's the current value of the liability for the comp time held by the sheriff's office deputies.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's the number that we're gonna have to budget for annually to add to their overtime budget
It's what I would ask for.
to make sure that they're covered.
And comp time,
No, hold on now. No. You're talking about accumulated annual leave.
I'm just saying if that was to go away, that's about the amount that we would ask for in our overtime budget to be able to
If we did
sustain
away
that.
with comp
if
time.
we did away with.
But you said it was only 1,500 hours.
I did, because we're using it, and it's man hours, not dollars, but now you're gonna make it all dollars. If comp time goes away, it's all dollars now. There's no using it and getting away with man hours, it's all
Oh,
dollars.
got you.
Okay, yeah.
And so those dollars gotta come from somewhere, so I'm gonna ask you
All
for them.
right, sorry.
No, it's all good.
Okay, so I see I wrote this in the meeting, and I also wrote it here, so
Yeah.
that's what would be expected. Okay.
Separate, but it's about the same amount.
Got you.
And that doesn't include the payout. The payout is another 800,000, one time. But the 800,000 that we're talking
You're
about
saying
now
the
is a
same,
recurring
saying the same
cost.
thing. yeah.
Yeah.
And comp time is managed by who? Is that through Workday, or is that through your office, Bruce, or who manages that?
We track it.
You track it.
The management of it would be
The
at the
supervisor.
department.
And does that go through Workday, Melody, or?
Who keeps the totals?
So it does go through Workday,
Yes.
or is?
Comp time is added to workdays when an employee fills out their timesheet.
Okay.
Do you all have a financial person in the sheriff's office? I had heard that you've got one. Does that person
We do.
track all of that for you? And do you feel like in real time you'll be able to get real numbers to manage this?
We can get pretty real numbers. I called yesterday to get a lot of these numbers from
Okay.
downstairs or over, but we also get the quarterly reports now. I am assuming they're quarterly, because we get them every couple of months, but quarterly reports from HR that have literally listed the employee, the date that he took leave and didn't use comp time. And so, it's dwindling. I think that report's going down quite a bit as we go along because we are using comp time first. I think the word's out that that's what we're doing. Just haven't done that in practice in the last 20 years probably.
Oh, while you're here, there's also been some discussions about when people call out, you have to backfill those positions. You want to elaborate a little bit on how that works?
So it's the exception, not the rule. So we don't grant leave, we don't grant time off if it's going to require a shortage, okay? The only time that would occur is if somebody was already granted leave, someone else then called in sick, and you were already at your minimum. So it does happen, but it is the exception, not the rule.
So in your shifts, if it's a
Yes.
12-man shift,
That's right.
you have a built-in tolerance.
We have minimums.
So you get to 10,
That's right.
that triggers
Maybe.
8 or
We
whatever.
may, with districts now, we may shift people,
Yeah.
and we may not even have one then. So, because we divide it out into thirds, there's minimums there, but we still shift. We try to stay flexible with it, and we use those as best we can.
Just so everybody understands.
Yes.
How this all works.
Yes, sir.
Can I interrupt really quickly? Commissioner Cox, I did want to point out, comp time is managed in Workday, but comp time is a manual process. So right now, if an employee clocks in and clocks out, it's automatically calculated. But if an employee elects comp time, they have to physically go in and enter those comp hours.
Make sure it gets counted.
So there is human error in entering comp
Can
time.
still be approved.
Yes, it does still need to be approved.
Okay.
We done with Colonel Bean?
For now, don't go far. We
I'll
might
be-
need you.
Yeah, don't go far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We included 2 slides of comments from the survey. These are from our HR peers in other counties. These are some of the things that we've been discussing today. Many departments avoid using comp time due to the high cost of backfilling positions, leading to increased overtime, service delays, and staffing shortages. And one more comment here. This is what you were speaking of, Commissioner Hance. It can lead to a higher expense if an employee claims comp time after a salary increase when it's paid out. Well, the liability for the county is higher.
But if you did that annually, that would greatly reduce that.
Absolutely, yeah, we wouldn't have that issue anymore. It would be paid out at the same rate that it was
Pretty close. They could
approved.
get a.
Oh,
during
promotion,
that
et cetera,
calendar
yes,
year,
good point.
But it wouldn't be like 30 years worth of increases, it would just be minimal.
Yes. Commissioner, I'd like to interrupt and go back to the average current balance of the comp time for the Sheriff's Office and Detention Center employees. It's 64.27 hours.
Yeah, it's less than.
When we were with you last time, we talked quite a bit about the short week and long week. So full-time employees need to work a minimum of 70 or 80 hours per pay period, depending on if they're 35-hour-a-week employees or 40-hour-a-week employees, for the purposes of retirement calculation and leave accrual. Sheriff's deputies, correctional deputies, and sheriff's communication officers meet this requirement, and minor work schedule changes can be implemented for career EMS and emergency communications to meet the requirement.
So did we get that issue worked out? Because I know in our last discussion,
Yes.
there was concerns about, because the way their shifts
day,
are, one
yes.
week they might work 50 hours, the next week they only work 30, and they were concerned about.
But it
So
still equals
Because of
80.
their status though, right? Because of their status,
Partially exempt
partially exempt, that doesn't matter.
for
Okay.
law enforcement and the detention center.
So sheriff's
about-
deputies and correctional deputies,
Yeah,
they
but
are partially exempt, so we're looking at the
Paramedic.
2-week
But
pay
we're talking about
period.
EMS now.
In
So how are we
control
fixing
center
them?
personnel.
Right, so they're non-exempt, they're not partially exempt, but they do work, so sheriff's communications officers, they're scheduled to work 80 hours in a pay period, so they're meeting that 80-hour threshold. And then career EMS and emergency communications, there would be just small changes to their schedule so that they would meet the 80 hours as well.
But there could be a week where they earn overtime because they worked more than 40, and then the following week, a short week, they wouldn't get any overtime because they didn't end up working 40 hours in that pay period. For career EMS, we have a solution to career EMS, and we sat down at the table and we did meet with them, and they will have to add, because you have to keep in mind that these employees are 40-hour employees, so they should have been working 80 hours a pay period anyway. And the issue was that every fourth week or so, I might be wrong in the exact timing, but they come up short maybe about 8 or 9 hours, I believe. And so the issue now is that those employees will have to use that time for training because they cannot be short. In order to meet their benefits eligibility, they do need to work the right number of hours that are prescribed by their employment agreement with the county. We sat down with Lieutenant Miller, with Director McDowell, Deputy Director Dowd, and we have a solution. And we have a recommendation that those employees would be able to start floating their holidays. That would be in Part 4, so we don't have that before you today, but you'll see a recommendation for floating holidays for those employees so that they could actually take the leave that they earn from that. If they don't have the training hours, then they could just take leave, which would be their floating holidays during that time.
All right, so the overtime that you said is being accrued, do we have a number on what that's gonna cost us?
Say that again.
The overtime that you say is gonna be accrued by those that aren't non-exempt under FLSA, do we have a number on what that overtime's gonna end up costing us?
I did not break that.
Two groups, right?
The other two groups or three groups that we talked about?
I did not break it out detail,
Okay,
but we can calculate that.
because that's overtime built into schedules,
Yes.
is what you're saying. So if we did not go to the daily, or went away from daily overtime and went and go to 40-hour overtime, would that be an issue?
An issue as in an
For
additional
those two-
expense?
For those two groups, correct.
No, we've sat down at the table with the sheriff and the detention center, and there is no issue.
No, not the sheriff or the detention center.
EMS.
I'm saying the control center, for instance.
Yeah, no issues. We talked to Stanley. He has already made, he
But I thought you just
understands.
said there was overtime built in to that schedule. There had to be on their short week or their long week.
So Stanley does not follow will not be following the same model as Stanley, I'm sorry,
Yeah, I know.
the chief of,
Correct, we're fine.
for the public, the chief
Correct.
of 911. He does not have the same schedule as career EMS. And I am not going to be able to quote to you exactly the solution that he has come up with for his group, but we have spoken to him, we run this past him, and he had a solution back in April when we first brought this
Okay.
to you. So there is no
All right, it just
issue.
concerned me when I heard that there was gonna be built-in overtime
Well-
during one of the weeks.
And they have built-in overtime now, but it's daily. So the savings comes in is because it'll be weekly now.
So you're gonna bring us 911 and EMS next time you're up here, right? On solutions.
Oh, for the leave,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
yes.
Okay.
For the, yes, for part 4, absolutely.
And you only get overtime if you've worked your 40-hour week or your 35-hour week. Anything over and above, you only get overtime then.
Our current policy?
In the new proposal, in the current policy, you get overtime if you work more than your regularly scheduled day. Doesn't matter how many hours you work that week. Currently, we would pay you overtime. Let's say on Monday, you worked 10 hours and you're normally supposed to work 7.5. We'd pay you overtime for that extra 2.5 hours. The rest of the week, you might not show up at all, but you're still gonna get those 2.5 hours of overtime, which is what
Correct.
they're trying to correct in the new
Yes.
policy, which means you won't get it until you've passed 35 hours for the
Or
entire
40
week.
hours.
Until you
Whatever your-
until you have physically worked.
Right, until,
Okay.
whatever your regular works. And the complication with, for those listening, the complication with EMS is they work 24-hour shifts. So you're working, you're on a day, you're off 3 days, you're on again, so your weeks get jumbled. At the end of the 2 weeks, you have the right number of hours, but when we start looking at individual weeks, they have a particular complication for meeting the numbers, so.
So I think because they're not law enforcement or correctional exempt, if they're working a 12-hour shift and it mirrors the 12-hour shift that the sheriff's deputies work, there has to be built-in overtime if we go to weekly overtime.
Correct. Based
So
on
it's-
the shifts, if they do not change the way they schedule their employees, they will have built-in overtime, just like they are getting built-in overtime right now.
So you're saying the SCO schedule has to change?
No, it does not have to change. They can maintain the same schedule that they have now. Their overtime will be calculated differently. They will not get overtime until they physically worked 40 hours.
Okay, well, 1 week, they're way over 40 hours. This is what I'm getting at.
So
This is
they'll
what we
get
talked
time and a
about
half.
in April of '24.
Yes,
So there is built-in overtime because we're going away from daily overtime to weekly overtime for those several groups.
But they were getting it now for the daily.
they currently have built-in overtime.
Yeah, they're getting it now.
So I think it should have been 4 hours of comp in there.
Well,
Lieutenant Colonel Payne or Sheriff, can you talk about that?
Do they tell you shortly?
I'm not 100% following you, Commissioner Allen, if you could.
So, right now, you pretty much have your SCOs mirroring your squads.
Yeah.
So they're working a long week and a short week, just like everybody else.
Yes.
Because you're exempt, your deputies are exempt, and your correctional deputies are exempt, they're out of the
I got
equation.
it now. So everyone, so it covered everyone except those that you're talking about, the SEOs for us, because they are not, they don't fall in those categories of partially exempt or exempt, any of those other things. They are just regular county employees, for lack of a better word. So they would have overtime 1 week, and they would be short hours the next week. We went back and forth with that. And it equals out in the end, and actually, it depends on the we've done about 1 million calculations. Some of them will tell you they come up a little short, some of them will come, it's about the same, though.
It should be 84 hours total if they work 12 on every one of them.
It's correct.
So that 4,
But they don't, they're working a short week and a long week, and so they don't have those exemptions in place. So they have to get compensated, and they have to, they can't move those hours around, like.
but the way it is now, it's fine because they equal 80, correct? Or are they doing the comp time to make up the difference for your 84?
They are doing some comp time, they're using some comp time back and forth to do that.
Okay,
They're earning comp time, burning comp time.
okay. But it's not costing us because you're using it and losing it.
It's the way
No,
I
it
understand
is
it. They
costing.
may have some built in there, I'm sorry, Melanie.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It is costing because they're earning it daily. So right now, they're earning daily overtime. And comp time is time and a half. It's not hour for hour. So
So that
there
would be the
is,
difference.
there is
So
a
already
difference.
getting it.
there is already built-in overtime. And like Payne said, they've run the numbers both ways, and it's almost neutral.
And they are actually in another category anyway. They are, and I say this wrong every time, Melanie, correct me, they're 80-hour employees on a 70-hour schedule, or?
Yes.
70 and then 8, I may have it backwards, but, so it doesn't make sense that way either for me, but I didn't put them there.
So guys, I was gonna wait till the end, but I think Jesus is gonna come back before that. So, look, okay, I love slide 2. Simplify, deconflict, update, and render best practice. That's some great bullet points, okay? So there's an old phrase called if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I've been here long enough to see things happen sometimes. When the tragedy happened in Great Mills, the time Sheriff Evans walked in here and he said, you know what? I'm going to put an officer in each school. It's going to cost you $8,000 a day. What are you going to say to that? You have to. Certain things happen. You're going to have a blizzard. You're going to have all this kind of stuff. But you can't cookie cutter this. It would be nice. It would really be nice. But the guy that works 35 is going to say, I want overtime at 36, and the guy who works 40 is going to say, I just worked 5 hours and I didn't get overtime. It would really be nice that we all would have the same thing. Guys responding to somebody having a heart attack, and now all of a sudden, well, he's in overtime hours and we didn't build in for it and all that stuff, and it just doesn't work that way. I wish it did. Comp time is a useful tool. Like, I don't know if sheriff or assistant sheriff said, sometimes they just don't replace those bodies. They use that time when there is ever a slow time or what have you. So I know what we want to do. We want to make the most efficient piece. I get it. I do. And we're trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can. And I'm all about that. But just like I was at a place talking the other day and there was an EMT worried about comp time and all that stuff, I just don't think we're going to be able to make one size fits all. I truly don't. I wish we could. But I think EMTs and law enforcement and the guy that drives the plow, and if all of a sudden we call JR because we had a water main break and the road fell in the ground, things are just going to happen. Unfortunately, in county government, we have to handle everything. So I appreciate all this. I do. And a whole lot of work went into it. I get it. But you're not going to get there. Just my 20%, as Steve used to say, you're not going to get a one size fits all. And sometimes there's bad actors. It's true. But as my uncle used to say, sometimes that's a fleas come with the dog. I'm not going to penalize the good actors for the bad actor. So to wrap up all that, my 20% says, hey, look, Sheriff, tell me what you need to run your department. Director, Dave, over at EMTs, tell me what it takes to run your department. You know, Melanie, tell me what it takes to run HR, what have you. And then what we can streamline, we can. You know, whether that is a 40-hour work week, I don't know. Or if it's a 35-hour work week, I don't know. I don't know if a person says, hey, I was hired at 35, I'm not working 40, it's not fair, or what have you. I don't know. That's why I have very good directors. But we can battle how much we're paying on this and how much we're paying on that all day long.
And I agree with you. I agree with you.
Just not going to get there.
But I think we have an obligation to be as fiscally responsible as we possibly can.
We do.
By minimizing, which I think everybody in this room agrees that we can minimize and probably tweak that comp time, so that we're not paying, you know, somebody does, the average person might have
could cap
67
it.
hours.
You could
Somebody
cap
else
it.
could have 400. That is a significant amount of money
You could
down the
cap
road.
it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I think we can tweak some things without a doubt. But to, like the conversation Payne and I were just having, I mean, you're going in there and you're asking them to totally restructure the way the sheriff's offices run on the civilian side of things with those SCOs to satisfy whatever's being done here right now. And I don't think that that's fair.
Just to
do
be
that.
clear, the HR is not recommending that they restructure anything. with
No,
the
but what
SCA.
I'm saying
Their
is,
current schedule works exactly for what we're proposing.
but monetarily wise, it's gonna cost us money down the road. the way it sounds.
No, I don't quite agree with that.
But going back to what I said, Mike, we'd have to be fiscally responsible. If we
Yeah,
can
and
tweak
I
some things.
I completely agree with that. I just think that,
And you know, Mike, you've been here 10 years. I appreciate hearing all of this. Maybe I have a new perspective. I don't understand K-9, why they have to get something extra. This is great for me. Talk to me, prove it to me. And, you know, this brings open dialogue, and I think this is absolutely fantastic. We can improve in some areas, but we certainly are not going to say to the subject matter experts, the people who put their lives on the line every day, oh no, oh no. This is dialogue. This is a work session, and I appreciate it.
And just to go back to that canine thing, not to go all the way back, but
Okay.
that rate that's there now replaced time off, comp time that we had in place before. So it's what we're talking about doing with the rest of it, and now we look at it and go, why are we doing that? Well, we did that because we had in place an ability for them to have extra time to take care of their dogs in the form of comp time and an extra time, half hour off every day. And we said, that's not good. We went to $2 an hour, or whatever it is, and we changed the code. And now we're looking at the code, you know, and saying it's not right. So there are some backstories to some of this stuff too.
And I think the exercise is important that we look at everybody and how their work schedules are and how they, I mean, I think it's been an excellent exercise.
It's incumbent upon us as commissioners.
It is.
Absolutely.
Do you have any questions for me?
Don't go anywhere.
But no, and I think at the end of the day, we're just trying to cap some liability. And I think there's a way to get to that doesn't affect.
Correct.
Still gives them the ability to use comp time to balance out their schedules, but doesn't create these huge liabilities in the future.
Well,
And I
just
think
like-
that's what they're concerned about, is the huge liabilities that we're building in the future. I don't think it's so much about the individual comp time.
And just like the point you made earlier about somebody working at nighttime, well, they got a job during the day and want to have a second job.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that, because if I sign up to work nights, I signed up to work nights. Why should I get paid any extra for that?
So Commissioner Hans, I would just like to give you an example. So, and custodians, the employees that are doing the work, we have to be able to have the flexibility to move our employees. We have to be able to say, okay, today you work, you know, at the pool. Well, now we got to move you to work in the courthouse at night. We've had to move employees before and Tom Jones has given them enough notice to do so. However, that is an undesirable shift to work overnight in the courthouse.
Not for everybody.
But in order to be able to move staff and for it to not be seen as an adverse impact to their conditions of employment, because you might not be advertising these positions, you may just be moving people around.
And Director, I agree with you. Where, just like the sheriff's office rotates their shifts, I'm working days now, and I'm working nights, I get that. I'm saying if you come in, your job is at night, you should not get night differential.
Understood.
You signed up to work those hours because it benefits you in some way. I signed up to work nights. For me, it works in my personal life. I shouldn't get extra because I'm working nights. That's what I signed up to do. That's all I'm saying. But I understand where we have to rotate people around. You know, I signed up to work days, all of a sudden you need me to work nights, then I should get. Or my shift keeps changing, I don't know how they do that because my sleep schedule would be all screwed up. I understand that that does deserve some compensation. I'm just saying, if you signed up to work nights, that's what you signed up to do.
So with our 911 operators, they signed up to work at night. We pay them shift differential right now to work
Paramedics, do
at
they
night.
get shift differential for the part of the 24 hours they work nights?
Not right now. No, we're proposing to include them into the night differential.
Wasn't there one of the surveys, didn't y'all do a survey for that?
They didn't sign up for
They
that.
signed
Yes.
up to
They
work
signed up for
24
that.
hours a day.
So should we eliminate shift differential?
No.
No.
Okay.
I said, for the people that are required to alternate between days and nights, they should get something, because that is, I can only imagine how that affects your life. But if I sign up to work 24 hours, that means I signed up to work nights. I should not get extra pay for that. I signed up to do
But what
that.
happens, hold on,
What
but what happens is, so somebody quits, they get sick, they get hurt, and somebody's got to pitch in to do that
That's
shift.
okay. They should get paid.
But now when I go back to it, you can't do it. In private
No,
industry,
no.
we can do that all day, but
They're-
in the government, you can't.
They're going to get paid overtime for that.
But what about when I come back to work because I was out sick or whatever, and I said, well, wait a minute, you were paying that guy an extra 50 cents an hour to do what I'm doing now.
But that was your regular job.
I get it. In private industry, you can do that, but here in the government, as I've been told from time to time again, if you do one way, you got to keep going. I mean, in my world, yes, that's how it works. But that's not how it works here because I was out for 6 months for whatever. You had to pay overtime for somebody, but now I'm back to work. I know I agreed to do that then, but I'm with you.
Is
I get
Commissioner
it.
Hart correct in his analogy that if somebody's out on maternity leave and we have to pay somebody time and a half to fill in for them, when I come back, I should get time and a half for my regular job? Because that's what he just said.
Doesn't work that way, but that's.
But I'm asking the
but
question.
I'm just saying that's
crazy.
But that's
That is
that's
crazy.
the hill you're climbing, though.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well. I mean,
Who's right?
No comment.
I'm just saying, worker A is going to say, well, I was out for 6 months and they paid worker B that. Now I'm back. I want that. Not saying you're going to do it. I'm just saying that's what.
That's just crazy.
I know.
That means that
That's why in private industry you had night differentials. So if I'm working for Safeway and I'm cutting boxes during the day, and I work night crew that week, I get night differential. But the guys that worked it all the time, they did get a night differential. They got an extra 50 cents. So that's the only reference point I have is that's how we did it in the grocery business. So, but I'm with you. I get it. I know what I'm coming in to do when I get hired.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm old school.
I am too.
We're just old.
Yeah, we're just old.
I'm sorry, we have dragged out this discussion.
I appreciate the dialogue.
Well, we're learning as we go.
The last portion of our presentation, Commissioners, is an overview of the proposed amendments of Part 3, Pay Plan and Adjustments. We've added language to state a COLA, a cost of living allowance increase, may be granted each fiscal year. Revised the timing of step increases to the first business day in July. And we revised the service requirement to 6 months for hourly employees to be eligible for a July step increase. Currently, hourly employees must serve in an hourly position for 12 months to receive a step when steps are granted in July. Other salary adjustments that we are proposing is a change to our promotion process. Currently, employees who receive a promotion receive 6% or the base of the grade, whichever is greater. We're proposing the 6% increase, and an additional step may be granted based on previous experience or qualifications. We're clarifying the beginning and end of the work week, and we've updated language to include compressed work schedules. We've spoken about this. We are proposing to expand eligibility for shift differential to include all FLSA non-exempt full-time employees and part-time employees with benefits. Shift differential will be paid for those hours worked between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. We're proposing a change to field training officer pay. We'd like to add 3 job titles to the eligibility group: career paramedics, career emergency medical technicians, and sheriff's communications officer 2s. As I noted before, we had a request just last week to also include sheriff's communication officer 1s. For canine handler pay, we would add eligibility for canine handler pay for each hour of holiday leave. This was an oversight when this section of the code was approved in April of 2023. There is no change to fiscal impact. We're proposing a new policy called critical incident response pay. This was added in response to requests from our salaried staff to provide premium pay for responding to emergency outside of normal work hours. This would provide compensation for FLSA exempt employees, salaried employees, who are responding to critical incidents beyond their regular work hours. We're proposing an hour-for-hour The rate would be the regular rate of pay. The county administrator would have final approval on critical incident response pay.
So can you talk a little bit about that compared to the call-in and standby? Yeah, what's the difference between,
So
give me
currently,
something to-
call-in pay for an exempt employee, they would receive 1X comp time for hours where they report to work outside of their normal business hours. We are proposing to eliminate call-in pay for exempt employees and institute critical incident response pay. This would provide them cash. We would be paying them 1X, the regular rate of pay, for hours where they are required to respond to a critical incident outside their workday.
Would this be like snow removal as well?
I'm going to defer to the county administrator, as he would be the one who would be approving whether or not an incident is defined and meets this requirement.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mark Willis, County Administrator. An incident like this could be all of a sudden a heavy wind shows up and knocks down a bunch of trees, and where we didn't have folks on call or on standby for that particular type of incident, we would call them in. The request would come from Public Works, and I would authorize it at that point.
Snow removal as well?
It could. I mean, we have had instances where we've had, we call bands of snow out of the Great Lakes area. We've had, the middle third of the county hit before, where we didn't plan for it because we didn't know it was happening. And we could end up with 2 or 3 inches of snow, and therefore we would call in those folks for a critical point at that time. It could also happen with, a water main break or a sewer main break. It could be an accident out on the road where the sheriff's office asks for us to participate in making the intersection or the accident area safe for citizens.
And Administrator Willis, if I may, also Richmond hearings for the state's attorney's office could also be considered a critical incident.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's only for exempt employees that can't get that anyhow?
Yes.
Because non-exempts are already getting that.
Correct.
This is just allow exempt employees, salaried, contractual, mostly, correct?
Yes. Before I move to the next slide, Director Miller, do you have a dollar amount on critical incident response pay?
That's costed out approximately $137,000. And that's based on the amount of comp time that was accrued during that period. Just a straight dollar.
I think it would have been helpful for us in the presentation to have physical notes applied to each of these items, so we have.
Very much so.
I mean, I know we're not approving them today, this is just a work session, so I guess my recommendation is the next time we do this, we should have physical notes attached, because, based on the budget situation we're in, it could make a difference.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's right.
We're providing 2 options to revise our overtime pay policy. As noted earlier, we currently pay daily overtime. We are proposing option number 1 would be to follow the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA, and require non-exempt employees to receive 1.5x for hours worked over 40 in a work week. Remember, the other counties that we surveyed, that is the policy that they all follow. Option 2 would be to exceed the FLSA for 35-hour employees, requiring non-exempt 35-hour employees to receive 1.5x for hours worked over 35 in a work week, and follow FLSA for 40-hour employees, requiring non-exempt 40-hour employees to receive 1.5x for hours worked over 40 in a work week. Time on paid leave would not count towards the overtime calculation.
Commissioner Cox, staff has reached out to Charles County since we've been doing this presentation, and they have confirmed that they do have some 40-hour employees and some 37.5-hour employees in Charles County. In Charles County, their EMS, paramedics, communication, dispatchers are all 40-hour employees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So go back to this slide here, and I'll go back to Commissioner Hart, simplify. Have we done a study on bringing everybody to a 35-hour work week or a 40-hour work week?
We have not done a
and
study on
what it's
that.
going to cost us and how it'd be presented?
Well, I just think that based on my time here, we've had those discussions in the past, and if we were gonna make that change, it would be more moving everybody to 40 than would be reducing the 40 to 35. Because we move those people to 40 for a particular reason. Work schedules and coinciding with contractors and vendors and those kinds of things, and the jobs that they do require 40 hours. So just to
I just didn't know if
Yeah, just a little background.
Yes.
We did look at that in the past. I think that some studies have been conducted, and when you go to 30, when you move from 35 to 40, you don't gain that much more productivity. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, but
That would be expensive.
Mm-hmm.
the studies show, because the average person would say, well, if you go to 5 more hours a week, you could probably reduce staff, or you get a lot more done. Studies show that you don't gain
didn't work
any
that way.
productivity.
Correct.
Because I thought that as well. I thought, well, instead of hiring somebody, if we were just to expand the hours a little bit, to maybe encapsulate that, but it didn't pan out, at least
It
then.
normally doesn't in the studies that they conducted, so.
And Director Miller, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding would be where you would realize the savings is if you made everyone a 35-hour employee and then you paid straight time overtime not until you hit 40 hours.
Right.
That's where,
So if
that's,
you took advantage of your employees, you could
Yeah.
save some money.
that's, that would be
On
the
the back of
only
your
way
employee.
that would be the only way that you would realize the savings from standardizing the work week for all employees.
I don't think we want to do that.
No.
Okay.
We seem like a bunch of Scrooges, but we do love our employees. I'm just gonna say that,
Our next slide, we're going to propose a one-time payout of comp time and discontinue comp time in favor of providing paid overtime. And this slide provides us with a little bit of information, how that impacts us having comp time. There are challenges using comp time. Employees accumulate comp time but often struggle to take leave due to workload demands. It results in a growing balance that may not be used effectively. It impacts operations. When employees take comp time, their absence disrupts project timelines and team dynamics, and it may lead to additional overtime costs to cover staffing gaps. There are financial considerations as well. Overtime is a predictable one-time expense, easier to budget. There is long-term liability for comp time. We pay it out 100% of their employees' hourly rate at separation. And the obligation goes well beyond when the overtime was accrued, the comp time was accrued. And the last item there is it impacts our financial reporting.
So maybe I'm too simple, but I would suggest that if we paid it out annually, that would accomplish what you're trying to accomplish without all these other complications.
And put a cap on.
It would allow them to still use comp time to work out through their shifts. It would limit the liability that the finance department is concerned about.
Mhm.
I think if you reduce those caps and pay it out annually, that maybe everybody would be almost happy.
It sounds like the employees that would be a concern of everyone, including the community, would be the partially exempt employees. And you certainly could make a recommendation that we would include in the code that partially exempt employees would be able to earn up to 100 hours of comp time, have it paid out annually and upon promotion.
I didn't think we could pay it upon promotion.
We absolutely could write that in the policy.
We definitely could.
Oh, okay.
So if you had made your adjustment, you paid it out at that time.
I think it would accomplish all of our goals.
So
Yeah,
partially
maybe I'm missing
exempt?
something.
So, no, it's more than just partially exempt employees though.
What else?
Well, your SCOs aren't partially exempt employees. So it goes back to the conversation we were having earlier.
So why wouldn't it capture, why can't we just capture everybody?
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Don't just limit it to one group.
The decision is yours. I would recommend only partially exempt employees because that seems to be where the hangup is.
There must be a hang up with other employees because Commissioner Ireland raised it.
Well, I've confirmed, since we've been sitting here, with the Sheriff Communications Officer, the supervisor there, that what we're proposing is a wash, annually and biweekly. So there's no detriment to those employees' pay.
But one of them's money and one of them's comp, correct?
Correct, but they both have a cash value, and they have confirmed that it is a wash. And what we're proposing is feasible.
Okay, nowhere else in county government it's gonna affect anybody that's labeled any other way.
You know, we've had many conversations, department head meetings. We've had individual meetings with various department heads, and my colleagues are in support also of the recommended changes. I don't know if now would be a good time to speak to Barbara Warner, who is the chairperson of the CERC. Barbara has done a lot of work with us, and she has gotten a lot of input from employees, and she can speak to the desire of the employees. I can speak on behalf of management.
Hi, I'm Barbara Warner. I am the chair of the CERC. So as it pertains to comp time, all employees are in favor of a reduction. They feel that it has gotten out of hand. 240 hours, 480 hours is way beyond what it needs to be. So our compromise was 70 hours would be the max for 70-hour employees, and 80 hours would be the max for 80-hour employees. And if you go beyond that, then it would become overtime pay. So if you have 70 hours on the book comp time, if you go to 71, that one is going to be overtime. And that was our compromise for that, so that we have a little bit of comp time, but we're not over. However, at the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, you pay it out. So the max would be 2 weeks of pay for each employee. And that's where most of the employees stood on that. Just, something, but not over. But also that it needs to be managed better. We need to make sure that that comp time is being used like it's supposed to be in the way, the code says that it should be.
Right. And I agree. And what we've tried to do, and Commissioner Hart, you can help on this, is if we're doing something for one, we're trying to do it for the other across the board. If somebody gets a raise over here, they get a raise over here. We don't take one group and say, okay, you can have comp time, and this group to say you can't. So Barbara, I appreciate that input as far as, requesting the cap and that type of thing on there.
And if I could add this, just a little side note, I have reached out to all of our representatives, and we have asked county employees to actually come up with cost-saving ideas. So we are meeting this Thursday to go over that. So hopefully we'll have that to the county administrator so that, at least employees are part of the conversation as well and try to come up with some better ideas. So
Very good.
just wanted to.
All right.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I think you know where we are.
Pay out the comp time once per year. Just for my notes, pay out 100% of the comp time balance. And then add a cap of 100 hours for employees.
That's even more what they want. And that'll get us on the right path, right? And
Yes,
it'll
sir.
still give them flexibility to
Move things
juggle
around.
things around.
And pay out upon promotion.
Sure.
Oh, yes, you're right, pay out upon promotion as well.
And I think the other items we might need fiscal notes on before we. And today's not a voting session anyway.
I don't get comp time anyway. If we're paying time and a half, I'd rather
Yeah.
do away with it. But I can live with restrictions,
Well-
but I'd rather do away with it.
I would too, but they are using it in a productive way to balance out their schedules, it appears, so,
And we'll give time to review it and evaluate it
yeah.
also.
I believe there's some confusion on the SCO thing that needs to be clarified. So I'm gonna take a look at that.
So you have that question from Commissioner Ireland, fiscal notes for those other items, just so we know. I'm not saying that'll sway our votes, but at least we'll know what we're agreeing to and the budget impact that it brings with it. Because I don't want to make a budget decision and.
No, not at all. Not, we don't have numbers to make a budget
Right,
decision.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
and then come back later. That's why we have those fiscal notes.
Okay, I guess.
Commissioners, what we will do is go back, and as painful as it may be, we're gonna watch this tape. And we're gonna make sure that we've covered all areas. I know that Dean has taken good notes. I know that, other staff are taking notes as well. But we'll compile it and we'll get it back in the form of notes back to the commissioners so that you can review it. When you accept the notes that we have, then we will prepare a future session for you.
I do have a question though, Commissioner Ireland. Are you referring to the earn and burn? Is that where, because I want to make sure that I'm very
The earn
clear.
and burn versus going from your daily to your weekly.
There is no need for, no one should be earning and burning. Regardless of what we do, what you do, there should not be, even if comp time goes through, we should not have employees who are earning and burning
It's called Kelly hours.
comp time.
They're called Kelly hours.
Those employees do not need to do that. They don't need to do it now. The reason that they were doing it before was for their retirement contributions. They wanted to get 40 hours on each week to meet their retirement eligibility. We have since, months ago, confirmed with the plan actuaries, those who oversee the retirement plans, and said, as long as those, and specifically these SCOs, as long as they get 80 hours on a paycheck, actually for them it's 70 because they're technically 70-hour employees, but as long as they work the hours that they're supposed to work, they meet their retirement eligibility. They do not have a need to earn and burn. That is a myth. I don't know how it morphed into that. It truly, I think, was just tied into the old payroll system that we had that couldn't handle sending the information over to
So it's a
the bank.
change since Workday is what you're saying?
Yes, so with Workday, Workday can do exactly what it is intended to do, and that is, if you get 80 hours, you meet your retirement eligibility. It does not have to be 40 on each paycheck, and we have confirmed that with the plan actuaries.
As long as we have the 80.
Correct.
Right.
I would like to confirm, Melanie, the positions that you're talking about, they are 80-hour employees.
I'm sorry. So it is
I
80.
thought they
They
were,
have
but
to meet their
there's
80.
a total of 84.
It's-
They're 80.
They're on the 70-hour pay scale, but they're 80-hour employees. My apologies.
I'm going to throw a wrench in there. Why do some of our employees work till 11 o'clock last night and get jack?
Well, we're proposing a solution.
I hope so. I mean, I couldn't even believe that. Our employees need to be compensated when they are putting forth the extra effort.
That could be deemed a critical incident per the county administrator.
Shoot, I know one would qualify every weekend now.
We'd have
I know a couple.
We'd have to slow her roll.
Wait a minute, did commissioners qualify for critical?
Oh, and I want the public to
Good
know.
luck.
I want the public to know on Facebook, there was a range that we as county commissioners
yeah.
make 90-some thousand to 120-some thousand. And we make 48,000 a year, and if there's something going on, I want back
Me
pay.
too.
Understood.
HR? Did you
Is
get
that
the
in
note?
chapter 86 anywhere?
That overtime was
Gotta
not
be in
asked
there
for in advance.
Well, we do appreciate all your work, and please don't take this discussion as, we didn't appreciate what you did. But I think it's a process that you have to go through. Commissioner Hart can leave next time, but I think it's an important discussion, because I learned a lot about, through this process, about how different agencies work and how they manage their time. So it was important for me, at least. I appreciate
It
it.
was important to me as well.
And I think we'll get where we need to be, and we're not cause a lot of havoc, and meet everybody's goals pretty close, so.
And Sheriff, I need clarification on comp time because I still don't understand. Not now, when you and I meet. I don't want to prolong this, but I don't get it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Continuing on, we removed the volunteers section. We've talked about emergency call-in pay. We are clarifying the definition of emergency, and we are removing comp time for call-in exempt employees, our salaried employees. The new initiative that we are proposing is standby pay, compensation for non-exempt and partially exempt employees who must remain available to be called back to work. The rate will be determined in the budget each year. We are proposing a rate of $22.50 per day. That was recommended by the Finance and Budget Director. The workers' compensation article, we are removing the unemployment compensation section. We follow state law for unemployment, clarifying and simplifying the workers' compensation language, adding that restricted duty shall be accommodated on a case-by-case basis, and providing an option to terminate employee while they are on workers' compensation. Regarding holiday premium pay, we will be defining holiday work as work performed on an actual holiday. Holiday premium pay is equal to 1.5x of the employee's pay rate. So essentially, they would be receiving the regular rate of pay and the holiday premium pay, so double time and a half. And we're adding language to state a regularly scheduled shift that overlaps 2 days. I'm thinking here of our career EMS positions, one of which is a holiday. It would be considered a holiday throughout the entire shift. For the most part, this does not impact our partially exempt employees. The sheriff's office, they are already paid the premium on an actual holiday. But our other employees that work Monday through Friday, they would receive just 1x when the holiday falls on an observed day. So let's say that Christmas falls on a Saturday, which it will in 2027. What will happen there, currently, we would observe that holiday on the Friday before the day before. And so those employees that are required to work on that day, they would receive double time. For those employees that are required to work on Saturday, the 25th, the actual holiday, they would receive double time and a half. So what we're proposing is that only employees that work on an actual holiday would receive double time and a half, and there would be no premium pay for, in this case, the 24th. The next steps in this process, I believe I should add that we'll be coming back with the fiscal impact. But we would be making the revisions based on our discussions with the board, and the revised amendments will be sent to the county attorney's office for legal review. Schedule a public hearing. The board would vote after 10 days, and we would adopt the amended Chapter 86.
I think we've done that.
I think so.
Well, we thank you for all your efforts, and as soon as you're ready to come back, we'll get you on the agenda.
Okay.
Get this thing moving.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Commissioners.
Good job.
We appreciate it.
The next item on the agenda is public comment.
Mr. President, there's no one online. Is there anyone in the room for public comment?
There shouldn't be.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That brings us to Commissioner reports. Commissioner Hart?
Okay. So I met with the Calvert County chapter of Republican Women, and it's been a while since they've had me there, and that was nice. And I put that out there to everybody. I had somebody. So look, if I feel my job as elected official, if you want to talk to me, that's what I signed up for. I had somebody say it was like privileged conversations. That's my job to talk to anybody. So if you're a group, and I'm not going to crash your party. I mean, if you have something that's going on, I'm not just going to walk in and, I know you have your thing, but if you wish for me to come to ask questions, I'm available. So I had a great time. It was really good to get back. I like to hear what other people think, I mean, you don't know if folks don't tell you sometimes. I was at, me and Commissioner Hans were at Patuxent's banquet. I can talk about that for 1,000 years. I did that when they first won, so I'll spare you guys of that. But that's that's a group of incredible people in that room. It's was really, really awesome to see what they did. It's a true Hollywood movie, like a David versus Goliath. I mean, the team they beat won 51 consecutive games. And I don't care if you're playing badminton or table tennis. Just try to remember trying to win 51 consecutive. So incredible. And then me and Commissioner Hans Sunday, this was really super cool. So we're at the 100th birthday party for two World War II heroes, John Makel, and I'm going to probably, and I mean no disrespect, Roberto Augusto Padilla.
Yeah, close. Yeah.
And man, and was it Mr. Makel made the joke with the camera?
Yeah.
100 years old.
He's
He's so
making jokes.
cool. He's so cool. And they're like, do you mind if we take your picture? He goes, well, your camera will never be the same. So cool. I hope, well, for me to be here at 100, if I was Vegas, I wouldn't take those bets. But, I mean, just two awesome human beings. It was a true privilege to be there. I'm a big history buff, and I'm not here today for not people like that. You know, and if you don't really understand that, boy, get a history book, because I mean it's true. You know, when they're talking about they're the greatest generation, think about all the things. You know, you'll hear people say, stop it already. Look at all the things that we benefit from that generation, and it's a list. The person was going through the list. It's too long to list, but I'm telling you, they truly made this country a great country that it is, and it was an honor to be in the room with them. I'm so glad that I was there.
Thank you. Mr. Grasso?
On the 6th, I attended Senator Jackson's district reception in Annapolis. On the 8th, Adam Wells became an Eagle Scout, so I attended his installation. The sheriff attended as well, and I have to give the sheriff kudos. He's doing a great job, and he's got signs made up with the Scout emblem, and he has a message like burnt into the wood. He just does a really good job with our Scouts. That evening, I attended the North Beach Volunteer Fire Department Awards and Installation Banquet, and that was really a good time. I had a great time there. Steve Stanton was so welcoming. I've got a few meetings set up with some of the firefighters, and also I was very impressed that they don't have a volunteer problem. They have an awful lot of young volunteers. And God willing, I'll be there next year for their 100th year anniversary. I also want to give a shout out to Sheba Smith, Economic Development. She is one of the 2025 Maryland Top 100 women. So congratulations, Sheba.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox?
Thank you. I also attended the District 27 night in Annapolis with Commissioner Grasso. And tonight, we do have our public hearing on staff recommended budget. Please come by at 7 o'clock. And this year's going to be a tough budget cycle, but we're going to get through it. And Monday, St. Patrick's Day. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. Commissioner Arlen?
So I've been sick the last 2 weeks. I had the flu and ended up with a sinus infection, and I'm glad to be here today. That's all I have.
That's miserable.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, 2 Saturdays ago, I attended a Eagle Scout ceremony for 2 young men, and I can't recall their names, but Reverend Hun, who started our meeting, his son was one, and Dr. Torella, who some of you may know, has been a doctor in Calvert County for a long time. His grandson was the other one. And as I always say, these guys that make Eagle Scouts, and gals, girls, they're great kids. You know, you take time to talk to them. They've certainly chosen the right path, and they're going to turn out to be great individuals. And I always challenge all of them. My challenge is that you live the rest of your life in Calvert County, because we can use a few good citizens. And the parents, you know, if it weren't for the parents and the volunteer leaders, you know, it wouldn't all work. But such a great organization, where it's a privilege to be invited to their meetings. And I didn't go to District 27. I was with Commissioner Hart that night celebrating Patuxent High School's state championship for their football team, who came really close a couple times and finally got it done. And they've got a great coach.
He is.
That's what I learned
He
that
is.
night.
You know, when they won the first time, and this where there's a lot of people smarter than me, so it's not hard, you know. So they won, and one of the kids kind of got into nothing crazy, but enough to where the coach felt he needed to say something, and I was out of line, and I called him up and I said, "Coach, you think that was a little harsh?" He goes, "No, because in the real world, there's repercussions and there's consequences." And I was like, wow, you know, he just coached me. I mean, just, you know, and just, you know, because I was so, I guess just protective of the kids that he was protecting them, you know. It was just a small thing. It was really, truly nothing. Please don't play. It's just like boys get into it and stuff. And, but the level of discipline, you know, and you heard him say many times in there about the work ethic and the, he is one outstanding, the whole coaching staff, but you're absolutely right. He is an outstanding coach.
Okay, maybe Commissioner Hart's done now, but, and you know what I took away from it, and I'm sure they're all the same, it just, you know, happened to be at this wing. The coach, he's preparing them to win, but he's preparing them for life.
For sure.
You know, it's not about, you know, winning the state championship was just a bonus, but he's preparing these young men for life. And he talked about that night. So it was good meeting him. And that quarterback.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, unfortunately, I don't attend high school football games, but that quarterback, he set all kinds of state records.
Yes, sir.
He's quite a young man. Where's he going to school? I forget.
Naval Academy.
Oh, he's the one going to Naval Academy?
So they saw the leadership in him. He outlifts the weight room. His scholastics are great. He will go to the and they all like the culture. You think like you're a ninth grader that the seniors don't talk to you? Wrong. They start working with. They take the Solomon Steelers, middle schoolers. They bring them in there, and those kids work with them. It is a culture of trying to bring them kids up, and that's why you'll see when they graduate, they still come back and root them on. And oh yeah, he is one dynamite individual.
So now talking to Steve, there's a significant amount of freshmen coming out next year. How many is it? It's like 50 or 60 or something?
There's a lot. Well, I know we're losing, I think, 22 seniors, something like that. It's a lot of seniors we're losing. So the Solomon Steelers, boy, we're gonna rely on them.
Yeah.
But we have somebody out in that audience that her husband was part of all that.
Seventh grader was in the weight room for the first time.
And went to a championship game.
But it's, you know, like Boy Scouts, college, school athletics, they're all good programs, get kids prepared, because, you know, not everybody's going to the NFL or the NBA, but it teaches them values and lessons that will help them throughout their life. And that quarterback, that kid, I mean, when they got done reading all the stats on him and all the records he set, he's and going to the Naval Academy, he's going to turn out to be a fine young man. We hope he stays in Calvert County too.
Oh yeah. They picked right with him for certain.
And then on Sunday, as Commissioner Hart said, we attended the birthday party at the Legion in Lusby to celebrate the birthday for Mr. John Makel and Mr. Roberto Padilla. And I think Mr. Makel was on the beaches of Normandy. It's
heroes.
I really wanted to go.
Yeah, well, I told him that we had to divide and conquer, so everybody couldn't be there.
I already had something else, but you know, I was in Normandy in September, and we could have had some conversation.
And Mr. Makel, he's a character, as Commissioner Hart said. Mr. Padilla was a little laid back, but Mr. Makel, he's wide open.
Yeah, he's awesome. They're both awesome.
Yeah, I'll never see 100, so it's impressive to see these men, after what they've been through, still live their good lives. So we want to wish them again a happy birthday.
Absolutely.
And just to remind everybody again, the budget hearing is tonight right here in this room at 7 o'clock. And I have to say it loud and often that it's the staff recommended budget. It's what our staff is asking for. Doesn't mean they're going to get it. The budget's going to change a lot before we get to the end. Because, as some of you know, the state is pushing down costs on us. We don't even know what those costs are. Probably won't know them until the middle of April, which is going to make our budget process very challenging, to say the least. But we know it's probably at least $10 million as of today, costs that they're going to push on us that they previously have been covering. So this budget cycle is going to be very, very, very challenging. So you should listen in tonight, and you can always make comments via phone or in person, 7 o'clock right here in this room. So with that, I will ask for a motion, sir.
Yes, sir. That's the wrong sheet. Hold on. Sorry about that. I wasn't prepared, sir.
I can read it if you'd like.
All right, so I move that we recess to closed session pursuant to 3-305B1I to discuss the appointment, employment assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of an appointee, employee, or official over whom the board has jurisdiction. 2B4, to consider a matter that concerns a proposal for a business or industrial organization to locate, expand, or remain in the state. 3B5, to consider the investment of public funds. 4B7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice. And 5B8, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation.
Second. I have motion and second that we move into exec session. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great day. We'll see some of you tonight.